And good morning, because we're all so early to the metaverse,
Good
and we're
morning.
all going to make it. Thanks for joining us, the Metaverse Nomads. As promised, at least one of the six of us will be there for you every week at 10 a.m. PST to bring you your weekly dose of metaverse news and buzz from our favorite blockchain games and ecosystems. This week, we have myself, Bonafide, also known as InvestGeek on Twitter. We have Jesse Whittakus of Rome. How you doing, Whittakus? You're muted.
I am well, or I'm recovered. I got the vid, man. I got recovered from it within the past week or so. Didn't hit me too bad, but a little low in energy. But I'm here.
We're all thankful to hear that. And we also have Ray V's of Rome. How you doing, Ray?
I'm doing good, man. Ray VZ in the house.
Ray VZ in the house. And then how we doing there, Banjo Samurai of Rome? How you doing, brother?
I am doing good. I found my new barber where I live, and as many men know, a barber is a special piece of your life. So I figured I'd go hatless today.
Nice. Yeah, barber can be like a piece of your soul if it goes away, man, for sure. How you doing there, fancy head of Rome?
Doing great. Welcome back again, guys.
Right on. That's outstanding. All right. Well, first up, general metaverse news. We have Samsung joins Decentraland with the decentralized version of its 837 store. The physical store is located 837 Washington Street, New York City, and the store will offer digital adventures through the Connectivity Theater and Sustainability Forest. Basically, they're going to start having some metaverse experiences with their physical store bouncing through the metaverse. What do you guys think about that?
So when you hear about it, I was a bit unsure, but I think it's quite cool. Some of the past projects they did one about planting trees on Cardano, and it's not going to be like a permanent fixture in the Decentraland. It's just going to be there for a limited time, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with it.
Well, I've been giving a lot of thought to the metaverse and what it's going to look like in the early stages and what it's later going to develop into. And so when I think of the sandbox and I think of Decentraland, those are probably the two that come to mind that people think about in terms of virtual land and hearing some of the big names and some of the corporate brands that are starting to stake a claim. With Snoop Dogg and the news we've had in the past where people are buying plots right next to him just to be close to Snoop. My question is, what is going to be the first stage of experience that's going to make me think, hey, you know what? I need to pop into Decentraland today. Or, hey, I want to go back again because the first time I got so much value out of it, or there was something there that drew me back. I still can't point out or tell you what I think that experience will be because it's still so early. And what do you guys think?
Well, if Second Life is any indication of what people will do in an open environment, I think you're going to see lots of sex. I think you're going to see lots of people exercising their creativity in ways that they haven't been able to see it. And I think you're going to see a lot of artists show up, whether it's music or art or creation. I think that's how it's going to start. And then you'll start to see businesses look for a way to monetize it.
Yeah, I think you touched on something there, Banjo, as far as artists showing up. So, like, this isn't really an artist, but we just had this, we're talking about Samsung Store having an event, which is going to draw some of their customers who might decide to take those steps to get the MetaMask wallet and get into blockchain just so they can go experience that. And then you have things like Snoop Dogg, you mentioned, Jesse. He's actually going to be throwing parties in his mansion in Sandbox. So you're going to be able to be in there mingling if you've bought certain NFTs or whatever, you're going to have access. So I think these kind of things is going to be the initial draw, like you said, Banjo. And then after that, community will continue to build probably.
Well, I think the king of monetizing things, Disney, just announced they're getting into the metaverse as well. So
Yep.
Yes, they did.
With the money that they have behind them and all the IP they have behind them, the idea that you can go fly with Iron Man instead of go watch Iron Man has a lot of legs for somebody like Disney.
Yeah, and I think like you guys,
one.
Yeah, for sure, Ready Player One. And I think the draw for the layman of crypto are going to be those celebrities, those big name brand companies, those sneakerheads. Pick a demographic of what people are interested in the legacy world, and once, whether it's music as well, concerts for whatever artist, they're all be coming in as those, quote unquote leaders they're in their own right, come into and start learning or hiring people to create their NFTs, their own metaverse within a metaverse, and so on. So just give it more time, guys.
Right on. Anybody have anything else on that?
So how they're
go ahead.
doing it is a bit interesting. So the sustainability forest that you talked about, it wants to allow guests to have a mythical experience through millions of digital trees. So as I mentioned, it's like partnered with their old project with planting, but I'm not sure how many people would want to go like wander around in a digital forest. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what they're doing with space, because it is going to stick around forever.
Well, that's what I mean by a lot of these experiences will be interesting the first time. So it's like, all right, now I've been there and I've done that. What is the draw that keeps me coming back for more?
It's going to have to be innovation in the space,
Yeah.
People aren't going to
Added
be able to sit
incentives.
static.
Right.
Well, I think with gaming being a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry, that's the natural choice to bring people back into the metaverse. You get these big games, these AAA games. You're going to have people moving in, and then maybe you get like the mobile games that the moms, the 40 and to 60 class that mom and dads I love to play. Find some way to get them into the metaverse, and then you've got everybody.
I think you're right. So go ahead. Ray.
No, I was going to say, and we could all do our part as well. So tell your family members, right? share the podcast with everyone that you might know who's iffy or whatnot, because it's a process. Tell them to join Rome. The basics of how to get acclimated to the space. So thanks, community.
You know what? Good point there. Because when I initially found Bitcoin, it wasn't necessarily like in the beginning, I didn't understand the value prop of buying and holding Bitcoin, but it was more, I knew this was going to take over the world, and I didn't want to be old and not understanding and being pushed into something that I didn't understand later. I wanted to just go ahead and learn about it early,
Right.
And I think that same kind of thought process can be applied to the metaverse as far as, the metaverse isn't much right now. Right. But if you're here now, you're going to understand it at a higher level and be able to take advantage of opportunities at a better level, better level later.
There you go.
Nice.
So, moving on, big elephant in the room this week. Obviously, Bitcoin has been on a serious tumble, and the Twitterverse has been up in arms with their memes and all the fun stuff. I've been sharing a couple of them because it's all fun for those of us who've been there for a while. It's the market dips and everybody acts out and we all joke about it. So there's several reasons for this. Obviously, markets are not limited to one thing, but one of the things that happened was Kazakhstan basically had like a coup, and they turned off the internet, and something between like 10 and 18% of the global mining was done in Kazakhstan because of the power or the cost of energy there. So once again, Bitcoin kind of survived another hit to its mining network without any kind of serious glitches or anything like that. Another thing that happened was the Federal Reserve went on ahead, and there seems like they're moving more seriously on to tapering, which is always going to be you're going to see a drop in a lot of asset prices around those times as investors get scared. What do you guys think about these ideas?
I think it's interesting, especially the first part. About did you say Uzbekistan?
Kazakhstan. Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah. One of those stands. The idea of a government being able to shut down the internet, and of course, without the internet, you're going to have a lot of problems with things that are internet related. But again, it's all of these types of things that kind of put stress tests on the system as a whole, and that's how the system evolves and adjusts and becomes something more. And of course, every time we see blood in the water across the board, we get lots of people that ask that question: are you worried? What does this mean? Got a buddy that lives in St. Thomas that was asking me this. I'm like, hey man, when you see the tide go out, are you freaked out that the water's never going to return? I mean, this is just it's the tide of crypto and all of these projects, and there's going to be that ebb and flow. So it phases me at least less and less each time it occurs.
Yeah, and
Go ahead, Jay.
No, I was going to go. It goes to show that until these bigger players in the world, like the United States, China, Russia, get on board with having their, their citizenry mine crypto, then you're going to have these smaller countries that you might not even know how to pronounce doing this to such an extent until it's more widespread and accepted, I guess, as an idea, but also as law, if you and then let's not forget the tax loss harvesting and those over leveraged players in the market. So all of this contributed to just a nice week or so of markets going down, which is perfect buy, in my opinion, not financial advice.
Did anyone see that Vitalik Buterin, the guy who created ETH, supposedly announced that ETH 2.0 was significantly farther out than they had originally announced? So all these people who are hanging on the idea that ETH gas fees were going away got a little lesson in you're going to wait a while. So
I mean, they've been pushing it out since they started.
Yeah,
it's been
kind of like Lightning Network on Bitcoin, right? So
yeah.
it gives us opportunity for like Solana and other chains that are getting into the metaverse and the NFTs with the reduced gas. It really gives them more runway than ETH was, pretending to give people for a while.
It's going to be 6 to 8 weeks.
4 to 6, 6 to 8.
He said ETH 2.0 is coming out since 2016. I love it.
Right.
And then I'm not gonna slaughter your name like I did. I'm not even gonna try it again. The country, but yeah, no shade, brother. No shade. It's all countries are considered equal in my book anyway. I'm a metaverse guy myself. No loyalty anywhere. Going back to something you just said, Jesse. I tweeted out this week. I was saying my non-crypto friends prior to 2021 during a market tank, they'd be like, "Hey man, what do you think? Will the prices ever come back? Is it going to zero?" And then now my crypto friends post 2022, I'm getting messages, "Hey bro, I just bought the dip, man. Are you buying?" So those are the kind of things that let me know that we're all going to make it here. So anything else on general metaverse news before we go on to Star Atlas?
No, that was it for this week.
Do we want to announce our biggest promotion ever in the guild? I think the time's right? Just as a little one-off.
Sure.
Yeah. So this week we promoted Monticus and to the rank of Centurion. He's been a massive help since the very start. He was the first squad leader, and if you've been watching the show, you know who he is. He's always around. Great dude.
Yeah. Sounds like he's getting on Fiverr and buying some sort of outfit or something. Maybe we'll see Monty in authentic garb.
For those that don't know, the significance of this is that in the Guild Rome, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we've never been in an extreme hurry to grow, but we've held the importance of structure as one of the main pillars of our community. And as such, we have squads, and within those squads, we have squad leaders and lieutenants and our citizens of Rome. And each squad kind of has its own theme, its own culture. And so the squads have grown to such a point now where our very first squad leader is being promoted to a position that is the Centurion that now helps squad leaders with their day-to-day operations and choices and things like that. So it's a significant promotion within the Guild Rome, and it could go to a better guy. So appreciate all that he has done with us, and will continue to do.
Yeah,
shout out and congratulations to Monty, major factor in the guild.
For sure.
So moving on to Star Atlas official roadmap update. Just have to say that's one of the best things I like most about Star Atlas is that they continually week by week are updating that roadmap. And we were just talking backstage about how, sometimes it's hard to keep up with, but I'd rather they be doing these weekly updates as opposed to just keeping us in the dark and not letting us know what's going on. So they announced Cream, crafting recipes enabled after mining. So let's move into that. So
this is interesting for a lot of reasons. It gives us a lot of info, and pretty much Cream stands for crafting recipes enabled after mining, and it talks about everything involved with how we are going to manage our stations, mining claims, managing the raw materials, and what we can do with them.
I think whoever's making these acronyms has a little bit of a dirty mind. We've got SCORE, then we've got MORE, and now we've got CREAM. So who gets paid to do this?
And then blast off at the end into space.
Yeah.
So with this one here, this is related to more because it's obviously related to mining because it's got mining and crafting in it. Here's a tier 0. But what's I find curious is based on what we know about mining is that the mining operations need land. So does that suggest, and I don't see it directly within here, does that mean land sales must take place first? Is there going to be some workaround to where we will have another means by which to stake a mining claim without having owned land first? How does the land ownership work into this?
It's interesting. It's an interesting point you bring up, Jesse, because I think that they could structure it the way they did this initial SCORE missions, right? You just stake your mining claims and then you get some sort of distribution. I think that will kind of take away from the idea of, the Old West, where you went out and found your claim and started mining. But it seems if we take baby steps that they'll probably follow SCORE.
I suppose that is a way they could go about it. They could have this generic no man's land that they use as this playing field on which then we could stake claims. And maybe that is kind of like a genesis or, a tier 0 way to be able to initiate the claim staking and begin mining and crafting without actually putting the land sales in place first. Maybe that's possible.
It allows us to pre-alpha test, more parts of the economy and such like that. Because like I was saying before, if they release too much, if they start releasing land, then like Manager was saying, you're going to have to deal with that whole political aspect of, who claims what piece of actual land, and how the government's going to be formed around that land now and stuff like that. All that stuff comes into play if they release actual land sales.
Yeah, and one thing to note with the updated roadmap is that now they have removed all of the confirmed release dates. Well, I guess it's not confirmed until it happens, but they've removed all of the release dates. So phase 1, it's almost finished once the poll is down, Metaverse usernames are out, and then we go on to stage 2. That involves the showroom, Cream, and then stage 3. What I find interesting is there's a second version of Cream, and it talks about expanded crafting recipes. So everything's modular in this. They're going to keep on adding on to it, and what we can do initially will be expanded upon in future.
How do you guys feel about the crafting? We've all are veterans of some level of MMOs with crafting, and some require you to click every button, and some have allowed you some level of automation. What are you guys looking for?
Well, we kind of talked about this a bit, pre-game here before the broadcast, and some of my thoughts on it is how involved does the crafting need to be for it to make sense? Because if you're able to begin crafting the extra small ships, so let's say an Opal Jet or even an X4, how many different crafting parts, how extensive is the recipe, or does it need to be for it to make sense to craft something like a extra small ship? Is that 10 different components? Is it 15? Is it 20? So then all of a sudden you're kickstarting the economy for things that people can do, such as focus on creating one single part and perhaps see a return on their efforts for just providing that part to the rest of the community as a crafting item so that other people can then take those and consolidate them into the ship to complete a recipe. So I'm curious as to what that's going to look like and how many different parts are going to be a part of the supply chain.
Yeah, we know there'll be a market for these parts, whether it's completed ships built or just individual parts. So it's a pretty intricate and the balance of it all is I'm interested in seeing on the profits, if there's going to be profit to be made all around, or is it going to be they're going to make you complete a ship to have more ships in circulation for people to come in to purchase, because as what they said, they're not going to release any more of the current ships that just came out.
Right.
So one thing that happened this week is we'll be returning back to this throughout the episode. Swagner, he posted a lot of answers to people in the economics channel, And since that's not the Foundation channel, we can actually share these replies. And he talks a lot about all of the, in this one, how they are going to try and keep ships from being like an Axis scenario. And they want it to be like an infinite amount of extra small ships. Like, so if you're like holding thousands of them, it might not go up that much because they don't want it to. And that's like one of their core ideas.
It seems to me that they should make one of the, I guess, crafting loops or crafting paths should be those $20 ships, just to allow the player economy to generate that instead of making it infinite, and maybe adjusting the economy so they always average around $20, maybe not precisely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be great if the people that started to come in to find the game and they didn't want to invest a lot, they just wanted to be under $50, under $100 to get started. And so if the ships that they were purchasing to get started were player made, that would be pretty cool. So the sooner we can get there, the better, because that's fueling the economy overall.
Yeah, and in this message, Wagner, he talks about how we can craft ships in Cream, especially the extra small, and that is how they are like creating a scenario where they don't need to mint anymore. People can continue to make them if it's profitable, but if it drops, they'll make something else.
Yeah.
Anybody who's interested in scholarships, and we know some of the guilds are shipbuilding guilds, they're going to be gunning for this right away. So how do you benefit off of the desire from others to be first? Do you just go after the resources and try to flood the market that way?
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, this is going to be the first real economics that we're going to start seeing. You got resource management, you got crafting, and then on the top of that, you're going to have people actually buying these products. So it's going to be interesting to see it all play out and how the markets adjust. I was talking right before the show about the fact that if you got a $20 ship, what's the cost resource wise, mining? What's the cost with the things you're going to have to buy that you can't mine? And then the sell fees and stuff like that. I mean, you're going to have to be able to make a profit on something that's about $20. It's going to be really interesting.
And let's say that even the operating costs equal a certain amount. There's one other fee, and that fee is taxes. So, imagine in a given region, or even a faction, you're going to have shipbuilders, you're going to have miners, and those are the first two that come to mind. We don't know what other specializations are going to happen beyond that. But let's say that the controlling majority of the DAO for the region are shipbuilders. They may say, hey, you know what, we're going to lower the tax on shipbuilding so that we pay less tax, but we're going to raise the tax on mining. If they have controlling interest in the DAO, that allows them to do that. So that's going to be an interesting factor for cost beyond just operational expense.
Yeah, and
I
brought up.
Yeah,
shout out to
talk about it too,
Omega.
right?
Yeah. So shout out to Omega. I brought him up here as a comment because I personally wouldn't mind if there is some type of RNG, not to the extent where everything is dependent on it, but with RNG factored in certain MMOs, I feel it takes in the beginning stages of these NFT games. It could go both ways depending on, again, the tokenomics and how everything is thought about and then released over time. But the RNG factor can possibly work in ways to help reduce the stress on the team, because if the game is going to have some type of RNG factor, it's not going to be completely dependent on hard buffs or hard nerfs like you see in,
You want to break that into layman's terms for the less initiated?
Of what, RNG?
Yeah, because you actually have a good idea that I hadn't thought about, but he's asked you to make it more simple.
Yeah, so RNG stands for random number generator, I believe. But
yes.
Yeah, I've had some good experience with that. In League of Legends, I used to put 1% crit chance on, and that'd be really fun.
Nice.
But,
and basically, it comes down to luck. So it's a percentage chance of you rolling. The term rolling here would be the main word or the verb of what you would end up with. So if we're talking about Star Atlas in this particular case, for example, let's say the chances of crafting with 3 different materials could give you a chance of a rare material outcome, or a rare item that could be a module on a ship, or a rare, like a legendary, rare, or common, for example, just to keep it simple. So it would all be at chance, and depending on, I guess, the quality of materials can grant you a larger or a better chance of rolling a legendary module if this is how the game was, which it's not for Star Atlas, but I feel like if that was the case, people would, and this is how it is in DeFi Kingdoms actually, when you're gonna roll a new hero. So the RNG, and there's Discord bot commands that and ways you can figure out and look at the percentages per roll or per breed or per craft and what you would end up with on the other side. So now you can take more time and be more strategic and methodical about what you're collecting and which ones you're going to use together to craft this particular item or breed a particular axie or hero. And so I think it's pretty interesting. It brings a little bit more fun to the game because now it's about chances and probabilities. So
would we say that in that scenario, let's say that you wanted a legendary item, and so you had a 100-sided die, just use as an example, and so it gets rolled. What are the factors that kind of give you that extra boost? Like, for example, we know that there are trinkets, there are necklaces, there are things like the Taigu, there are
badges.
Badges. There are the fact that your fleet has some seasoned quality because they've been in operation longer. There's the things we've heard in the past, such as trained at the same academy, have been in service together for a longer period of time. So perhaps those things factor in that role because they kind of give you those additional buffs.
Right.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Benjo, just this quick note. So yeah, some items say it increases luck factor. So there's that RNG at play where you might earn more rewards or earn more of or salvage more of a person's total supply of whatever they had after you defeat them in a battle, maybe in deep space. So there's going to be some RNG, and I look forward to it. And yeah, but go ahead.
I think you need a little bit of both, right? So if this is going to model the real world,
right?
You don't get iPhones that were impacted by the RNG. They took a blueprint, They took the resources, and they created it. However, if you do something like breeding Tigu or down the line crew members, there should probably be some level of randomization in there, and then you're going to have like it almost like it happens in the real world. People start lining up to get the best outcome for their offspring one way or another, right? I think that makes sense from a random generator perspective. If it's luck as it relates to industry, it seems like that would be a success rate. Like your success of it reduces your chance of failure. That's how I look at it.
It's a great conversation because I was originally on page with Rob Mega. Like, I hate RNG. I hate that feeling of gambling and not knowing the outcome after I've put in a certain amount of effort. But what you guys are saying as far as it helping the overall ecosystem makes a lot of sense. I think it's definitely something that's been overused in a lot of games, and obviously it's saved a lot of games as well. So I think it's something they should be very careful with.
Banjo, in regards to your example of Apple, I think that would actually be cool on the next iPhone release. I think 1% of the iPhone should have some random feature built into it.
Yeah, that can go even better if it goes both ways, right? Not only positive features, but like shuts off after 7 minutes and 34 seconds or something.
What you got next, Fancy?
So yeah, we looked at Unreal Engine 5 showroom last week and looked at the pictures. Where are they? But yeah, so we covered that last week. Let's go to the 3D browser fades. For this, they talk about a fully charted game map, Star Atlas, viewable and playable in browser. What I find interesting is they talk about coordinates for ship missions, exploration, and mining actual owned planet claims. So this is stage 4. This comes after Cream, both stages. So you've already have your mining set up, and then you come to here and I guess you'll be able to place them, or I'm not sure how they make that step between the two. What do you guys think?
I'm curious to know, one of the coolest ships in the game, in my opinion, I think it's still the best pound for pound ship of all, and that's the O-Pod. Price-wise, size-wise, feature-wise, aesthetics, It's an amazing ship. And so this ship here, one of the features it has is data collection and scanning. So is that going to play a role in mining? Because there's going to be more than one resource to mine out there. How do you choose what to mine? Is it based on market conditions? Is it based on the materials that you're trying to supply for your guild? And how much of finding and discovering the actual resources is going to take part based on your ability to find them with a ship like this?
Well, I think you got a good point there, Jesse. I mean, from what we've seen, I think a lot of the community actually agrees with you that the data run is going to be very important. I think of that size and price of ship, I don't know of anything that's appreciated more in the past, since it's been purchased. So,
yeah.
And I guess on the note of that ship, hey, shout out to Lumina. What's going on from Coexist Guild in Star Atlas, Turkish Guild, I believe. And also shout out to Ash. She had a great Twitter space just the other day or yesterday.
Friday.
She does
them on Fridays.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, Bon and I were there, and we were chiming in, although we were busy, couldn't come up to the stage to speak on any other topics. But one of the conversations were from a person from the outside world coming into Star Atlas Metaverse, talking about how do we know the team is being truthful on if someone was actually piloting the OPOD into that video that we saw of actual gameplay. And for what it's worth, there was actually a member of the team, I forget, from
Santi was there and another guy as well.
Right, Santi, but also from Deep Pockets, I believe the guild's name is, who just recently got hired on, and he basically said, like, yeah, this is actually what happened. Somebody was manning the ship, and for what it's worth, the guilds are sharing the information as it comes from, in all honesty, from the top of the commander in chief, which is Star Atlas themselves. So people could believe it or not, but it's gonna somewhat be hard to believe for a lot of people not understanding the space.
Would it have been more believable if it bounced off the hangar door?
Right.
Well, he was actually joking in that in the Twitter space. That's Ash's Hypocryptic on Twitter. She does them on Fridays usually. But yeah, he was saying next time we'll have the controls visible. You know what I mean? That way you guys will know it's for real. From the actual player aspect.
Right, first-person view of the ship and how it's being maneuvered.
That's not confirmed. I think he was joking at the time.
Right,
it was a thing. Yeah.
Well, that makes me curious. I mean, because that would have been the angle, or at least if they bounced to that angle, of what it would be like from the pilot's point of view. Because we saw it from the ship just coming in, so I didn't even think for a moment that there was an actual pilot piloting that ship in. That didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah, Fancy told me it was actual gameplay footage because I didn't get it at first, and then I think I mentioned that on that last episode. But yeah, Fancy was like it's actual gameplay footage, and that makes it a whole different thing at that point if it's not a cinematic.
Yep.
Do we have the video again? I'd like to see, now that we know it's a pilot coming in, how smooth they came in.
Yeah, I think we have it.
Exactly.
It might have got deleted. I re-upload it.
and I guess with that in mind, if you were to hit the sides of the hangar or crash or hit something, what kind of damage and repairs are needed? To what extent are you going to need to repair the ship if you're going to continually bang the same side?
Is it
got scholars out there getting fired because they're rubbing too much on the hangar walls?
Well, yeah. I mean, is the part of the ship actually damaged? The part that hits? Is it just a generic drop of 8% in your repair costs, and you just need tools the way that we're already doing now in staking? Yeah, I'm curious what that mechanic looks like.
All right. Are the shields of the ship going to just? It might not even have an impact at all unless it's over a certain force. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is correct or not, but we have people in the chat saying the guy's name was Xcode from Deep Profits. Is that right?
Yeah, that's who he was.
Yeah. No, I can't find that video. Sorry, guys. But I do have a video that I have found this week, and it looks great, to be honest. Let's see it.
Oh,
nice!
That's
Look
awesome.
at that.
Yeah, so I just found this.
See.
So whoever the Pierce ship developers are, I mean, is it a whole crew? Is it a bunch of people? I mean, these styles, they're pretty consistent throughout the the fleet, and they are stylish. all the way down to the X4 even.
There's an interesting dialogue going on about this ship because it has a brig, and people are wondering if people can use this as a bounty hunter ship versus the Amway. It seems to have a little bit more firepower in it.
This one to me seems like it is, most of what Pierce seems to develop are models that are easily integrated into a police force. So if you're in sector 2, the not the safe zone, but the next zone out, where they are patrolling. So maybe this is something that will detain people, and so that's why it has a brig. As where the Amway seems to me more like it's going to be stealth oriented, so it can basically go out and bounty hunt with people that aren't suspecting that they're going to show up. That seems to be what the immediate difference is between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And these are going to be able to be craftable. So, what is it? A extra small XXS?
Yeah, no, it's a small, I believe, PSX 6. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
So the last thing to look at is Project Rose Garden. The description is confidential. First UE5 playable modules and home base. So again, no date, but it does. Go on, Jesse.
They call it a playable module, but technically the first UE5 playable module is the showroom. So I'm curious, like, what does this mean? Does this mean like this is where they actually, because they've hinted towards a number of things, such as racing. So is Rose Garden the first playable race in UE5? Or is it, what was some of the other things that they mentioned? They mentioned that there was going to be a first person aspect of monster battles on a planet. So, I mean, is that this soon? Not that this is soon, because this is a phase 5 development, but I'm curious what they mean by playable module and home base.
So to me, this sounds like your space station, right? They have the different decks where you might have an industry deck or an entertainment deck or a university deck. That's what I think this is. I could be wrong, but as I read it in one sentence, that's my takeaway.
Yeah, the name to me, it doesn't really give any details, but it could perhaps be farming, because it says home base. So perhaps you're out actually farming and you're getting materials that you can feed to your crews. That'd be cool.
You just made me think of something new based on that. So if farming is, being that it is crafting in a way, as we talk about crafting earlier on, are the potential components for the 4Rs something that could be craftable sooner? Food, fuel, repair components in the form of tools, and what's the
ammo?
And ammo,
yeah.
Are those craftable items, and will those be a part of early crafting?
That's an interesting concept. I think you're onto something, Jesse, but I also think it will be interesting to see how that plays up in the costs. Because right now it's relatively cheap to restock your ships. It doesn't take a lot. It lasts a long time. Some people are hoarding them for whatever reason, I don't know. But once you start to have player crafted, are they going to drive a higher price? And are the APYs and APRs going to go down on the ships?
Yeah.
And, there's always, these possibilities in games for people to corner a market, which will change the whole economy as well. And with this being a real world economy, you could actually have some whales come in and actually decide to try to corner something like a food or ammunition or a fuel supply or something like that. You saw that in the real world, obviously, with fuel supplies, right? So
Bill who? Bill Gates? Who?
Start crafting toilet paper stockpile.
So leading on from this picture, we looked at this last week, how Lumina brought these pictures to us, and I found the resource that he got them from, and there are a couple more on there. So
that last one,
awesome.
That last one, if you go back there, those last two, that I've decided that these are high-end graphics cards.
NVIDIA? Is that you?
Need the whole world to power them.
They definitely have a kind of cartridge look, right?
Yeah, and There was also this annotated version. Even if you're full screen, it's a bit hard to read. So I got a clearer picture, and to me, it's kind of hard to tell what like the general purpose of this is. Like, how does it even fly? Or I don't see any boosters, but it appears to be like floating in midair in most pictures.
Well,
yeah,
I'm
but
like,
planets that might have orbits.
if the thimble can fly, then this thing should be able to have some presence. So we were speculating based on these pictures as to what we think this thing is. We know it's identified as a claim stake. And if you look down there on the bottom, it's got an impact bit. So that means that it's equipped to drill. But if you look at the very top, it's got this array, and it's calling the arrays detectors. And in the description, it's basically saying that the arrays double as radar to scan for oncoming threats. But those arrays also look like they are like solar panels of some sort to gather energy. But when we look to what the actual power plants are, they look very much different than this. So this just looks like this mobile drilling operation that is identified as a claim stake.
Yeah,
maybe this is for asteroids or meteors. Maybe it's meant to be in space and it draws its energy from whatever sun is nearby. You can't just have mountains and power supplies and mini cities on an asteroid. So it seems like it has to all be self-contained.
Oh.
Yeah, and maybe based off the stake tier, the claim stake tier, they'll change or have different parts that allow it to be more efficient. So we'll see if it even changes visually.
So if this is a claim stake, based on everything we know about the ships right now, what size claim stake do you think this is? I don't think this is a tier 1.
All of them look the same image-wise. So we haven't found any distinction yet between what upgrades and what things make one stake tier higher than another.
Yeah, and I also found this picture that goes along with it. I'll play it a few times. It's short, but
It looks super cool.
Oh, it gets all
Get
it
it
got compact there at the end. Yeah.
Throw it in your ship and move it someplace else.
Yeah, put it in a pack light.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if you're throwing that in a ship, because one of the images within the marketplace shows someone standing on the top of this thing, and it's pretty big.
Oh, okay.
It's got some size to it for sure.
Yeah, you can see someone on this picture.
There you go.
And a couple people on top, actually.
So what do we think? We think we're going to tow it around, or you think it's just going to appear when we need it?
Maybe there's something on the bottom of if it could fit in something, I don't know what, maybe you could tear down and fit into like a C11, but not, I mean, you would think that people moving these around aren't going to require a large ship to do so. So it's got to be self-propelled in some way, because you could technically only have an OPOD and have a bunch of these claim stakes, and so to be able to use it and relocate it, there's got to be a way to do that.
Sounds like a good strategy, actually, there, Jesse. Shout out to Phobia FX. Where the hell did you find this? I want one. And PS was also asking something similar. We're in a lot of different Discords and channels where they're dropping this stuff, and we're saving the pictures that are allowed to be shared and putting them up here.
That's why we're your ear to the ground.
Yeah. A lot of developers have websites where they showcase their work, and we know which ones to go to, and we scrub those websites.
Yeah, along with the fantastic community who helps out in their own right and shares in the Discord. So
yeah, shout out to the Rome Guild. I was talking with some of our guild mates a couple of days ago in guild chat, and they were talking about the show, and I was talking about how we get all this stuff mainly from our community. That's mainly where all our information comes from. They're the ones pointing stuff out, and then we go look at it, and then friends of the show and stuff like that put us on the information as well.
Yeah, Lumina just sent a bunch more stuff. Oh, and
so here you go, right here. This is how it works.
Yeah, welcome, Ultra.
Ultra in the house.
You able to speak? Apparently not. Okay,
You might be working today.
Yeah, I'll download a few of these pictures, get them up on screen.
Right on. Where you going, Fancy?
Just the ones
Pictures
in
of the ships.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So while you're doing that, of these structures that we can see in the marketplace now, there's essentially only 4 different variations. There's the tier 1 through 5 claim stakes. There's the power plant, which has no tier to it. There's the space station, which right now does not seem to have a tier. And then there's the mining drill. So we have all these different tiers. And the thing that surprised me is that the image of the power plant itself is the one that really looks like a mining operation, but yet it's designed just to provide power to a mining operation. And the best guess as it stands right now, based on the limited amount of information for a space station itself, is that this is the place that sits above your mining station, so that you can send your raw materials there for quick and safe transport and advance crafting recipes. So it just kind of sits above. The other question about those space stations is, are we going to be able to build? How much will you be able to build them out? And as we heard from earlier about that Rose Garden, I believe, is that kind of now where all of a sudden there's a UE5 version of the space station that you can then walk around within. So lots of
I think
unknowns.
it'll be interesting to see if there's a mechanism for guilds to kind of build their base space station. Maybe that's home base within a guild.
Right.
Maybe we're thinking individually and it's not individual. And how big does that get, and what does it unlock in terms of different recipes or structures that guilds can build?
Yeah, so I put the first image up on the screen. He sent a bunch of them. These are like the little robots we see in one of the old terraforming pictures. Seems like this is an expanded upon version of it.
Do we think those big things are those additional grow lights? So that way, if you're whatever planet you're on, if you don't have a natural source of light, those things look illuminated as if that's somehow an additional light source. That's interesting.
I think so. Yep.
And they might be on tracks as well.
It looks like it. Yeah.
So Monty Burns says, I wonder if the stations will be vulnerable to attacked and robbed. I've always thought that would be the case based off of the particular zone you're in, whether you're in the safe zone or the mid zone or the you get your whole NFT deleted zone. I think it's you're going to be taking those chances, and so it's going to be interesting to see the size of the guilds and organizations that are going to be able to have a space station in these deeper zones.
And these threats are not just going to be player-based, as we all imagine now. There's going to be some AI-based threats, as well, as has been hinted to in some of the papers about what your base mining operation may need to defend itself from.
That'll be fun if you get like a little Borg action, rolling up on you at some point in the game.
Yeah, when it comes to the space stations, I think you'll definitely be able to upgrade them. And the description for the actual space station reads as comes standard with a trading deck necessary to tap into the universal marketplace. Constructing an orbital space station above your mining station is the quickest route for preparing your raw materials for a quick sale and advanced crafting recipes. So when it comes to these space stations, I'm thinking these are not just a wham bam thank you ma'am and you just deconstruct it and then you take it somewhere else. Although the rarity is common, maybe they all start at common and you could build them up to the point where they become these massive hubs of trading and just farming. Maybe you can grow things on the space station. It could be like a one size fits all if you get enough resources to build it out to do all these things.
I like that idea, and I think it's the fastest way to really grow a community of active players. And it's like what we talked about earlier, where I was posing the question, like, what is going to be the thing that gets people coming back to Decentraland, gets people coming back to Sandbox again and again and again. And Banjo, you brought up the example of Second Life. Well, I think that one of the first things they can do, at least within kind of a bubble, is to be able to provide some of that feature expansion within a space station. And then we will have those instances where, like I always refer to Quark and Deep Space Nine, where you're going to have a person that just has a cantina, has a bar. Another person has some type of shop. And so these things that start to develop in these little microcosms that are space stations. I think that's a fantastic way to be the first measure of creating an environment that people want to return to meet up with their guild, to meet up with other people, to interact with other guilds and people that they meet all throughout Star Atlas.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jesse, and that goes all the way back to what's going to draw people back. And what I think what you're describing is the social aspect. We already know that we're in a society right now where people are largely not able to be social and close to each other. But within the metaverse, you might be able to recreate, and I think it will be a proxy. I don't think it's going to feel just right. But the idea that you can actually go to a place, see the same people that you like to hang out with, over a game or over, fake liquor, however you want to look at it. I think it's the social aspect that's going to draw people in.
Yeah, I'm bringing up a message from Watson here, and he mentions how this takes a lot of space, but he's right. I think vertical farming like this does look a lot more futuristic than owning like an entire field and defending that.
And a little bit of Metaverse Alpha for you, Banjo. So there's already ideas being floated around. Some of these projects that I've been looking at are already talking about this idea of you order a drink or a coffee in the metaverse and it actually gets delivered to you at home in real life. And so this fake alcohol or having a fake drink with somebody turns into you having a real drink with somebody. So that's an interesting thing that's also coming down.
So I go to my Metaverse tavern and Amazon shows up with my IPA. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or Postmates. I don't do Uber, but Postmates or one of the other ones, DoorDash.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's basically what's going to take place. You got Nike, all these big players coming in, setting up their shops in these particular metaverses, and you'll be able to order right from there, the confines of your home.
I see an opportunity for Metaverse brothels then.
People keep going back to that, and that's something. I went and aped into like one of the first whatever type of tokens, Pornhub type of tokens, and it didn't do well, and nothing has done well in that genre so far. But eventually, you're probably right. It's just a question of when, but nothing so far has done well. So it's kind of interesting.
It's just going to be the right approach and the right way to do it that shows up. Because truth is it's a clear, huge part of human nature. So it's going to find its way into the metaverse, no doubt. And especially now with metahumans and how realistic they're actually able to get characters within game worlds now. But the other thing we have to remember is that it was the driving force behind the internet. Yep. It is what produced high quality video. It's what enabled security to be as profound as it was, membership sites, and even Visa MasterCard transactions. If you've never seen that show Middleman, which is kind of a variation of that story, pretty amazing. Like it's how much it pushed the growth and technology of the internet forward. And so it will definitely find a place in the metaverse. There's no question.
I remember never forget one of the earliest internet memes was the internet is for porn. It was reused all across different video games and etc. It was said quite a bit in the early 2000s. So yeah, you got a point there. I'm an early investor in the Playboy NFT for that reason, because I think they have because they're such a they have that kind of they have the community that's pretty strong, and so because of that, they might be one of the first ones that are actually able to break into the space in some form.
Do you know that here's one of the ways I see it folding in. You just reminded me of this, talking about Playboy. There are some Twitch streams now where the people that have these streams have a friends and I guess they call it friends and family or friends of the channel only streams that they have that are associated with that.
Hopefully not family.
Yeah. That's a whole other channel. but yeah, I see that something folding into the metaverse, the way that it's already evolving in channels or platforms like Twitch.
Yeah, and just like in the games we played outside of crypto, whether the genre was space or some other form of game, or MMORPG, there was always that relationship building aspect of characters within the game, depending on your actions. Like what comes up to me is Mass Effect. So Monty, if you're out there, I saw your comments in the guild, so I posted up a GIF of Mass Effect. and within the game, depending on your decisions, you're not earning anything other than just what you sought out to with the conversation choices that you can take one down as far as like the NPCs in the game on your ship. So yeah, when it comes to just the Verge token was back in 2017 one of the only tokens that paired
Verge
up
was one
with.
of them.
Yeah, I had a
Yep.
good amount of Verge, and when it
Yeah.
happened, it was not necessarily a surprise, but it was like we're talking about now. It's almost like the it's going to be commonplace for adoption to take place in ways that are not so traditional or outspoken to be, but it's basically the norm. When it comes to drugs, money, and porn, it seems to be the surface level things that not many people talk about, but it really gets things going when it comes to adoption of new technology or anything really.
Can you imagine what a pirate bay of the metaverse would look like? How awesome it would be to navigate that kind of little land.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
Without getting arrested.
Yeah, man, it's going to be an interesting world that we're going to be living in, as it is right now, with pronouns. Much respect to anyone and how they see and who they are in this world. But in the metaverse, you won't know if the avatar is a male or a female. If you're an alien, is it a male or female? Does that even matter? Like none of these
Personally, that's
things.
one of the best things about the metaverse to me.
These things have to play out. I mean, they truly do, because I mean, again, getting back to the whole esoteric position I take on the metaverse, it's like the internet itself was the first time humanity held up a mirror to itself and saw itself collectively in the mirror. It's not good or bad. It just is. All of those things exist. Social media was the conversation we had about what we saw in the mirror. And now the metaverse is this new, now that we have an understanding of who we are collectively, it's this large sandbox where anything that we can imagine has the ability to play out. And I mentioned this about a couple months ago. One of the books that I read recently is called A Billion Wicked Thoughts. And it is a fascinating book. And it was a book that could never, ever have been written before this time, because it's looking at anonymous internet data to understand every kink, every interesting thing about humanity. And you bet you're going to see many aspects of that play out in the metaverse, because it's a part of who we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's some people who are, you're going to be able to act out these things, but there's also going to be on the blockchain. So there's going to be people knowing what's being acted out, right?
Right.
So that creates a need for anonymity, or you just go right back to where if everything's public, people are still going to hold back and not share those deepest thoughts that they found anonymously through a Google trend search, right? So,
well, shout out to. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just one final statement. I think that just is a great example why we need some level of anonymity on these blockchains.
Yeah. Shout out to Edward Snowden. He's been beating the drum on that for years, and a lot of these chains are not listening. Privacy needs to be at the core of these blockchains, and nobody's really doing it. I mean, Monero's taking it very seriously. There's another one, I think. Is it Zcash that takes it pretty seriously, but nobody's really got it figured out yet. And the larger chains, where most of the people in the traffic aren't really doing anything at all. Bitcoin's moving slowly in that direction, and it's the only one that seems to be taking it seriously, even the slightest amount, when you talk about the top 10 cryptos. And that's something that has always been worrying, along with the centralization, is the need for privacy. That's the only way you're going to have true freedom in the metaverse.
Well, how does that work, or how might it work? Let's say that I'm in the metaverse and I'm in a particular game world, let's call it Star Atlas, and I'm on a space station, and I want to go into this particular cantina, but I want to remain anonymous. How exactly does that work? I mean, do you end up picking up a different handle? Is that randomly generated each time? What if you want to return to this place? You still want to be anonymous, but you want to still be known, or still have your persona exist within this environment. I don't have enough understanding to know how that might work, but obviously that's something that will have to be developed, because there's a need for it.
It's at the transaction layer. That's what Manjo's alluding to, is that you can't get away from your wallet address. And so everything that your wallet does or interacts with is part of the public blockchain that everybody can read. So you would have to have at the base layer privacy, to where nobody really ever knows anything beyond, what they're sending your they know your address they can send to, but they don't know what you're necessarily interacting with outside of that one transaction.
You're
And that's
almost
what
going
you
to
would
need.
need.
Yeah, you're almost going to need a blockchain that works like a VPN, where it tumbles all the
Right.
data through it and,
Yeah.
and makes it not attachable to one wallet or something. That seems to be the best way. Again, I don't know the technology behind it to know if it can be done or if it is being done, but that's the only way I can see it working.
And that goes back to Edward Snowden. He does a lot of research on this. He talks about it a lot on his Twitter, and he deserves a lot more support because he's been one of the few that's actually pushing these chains. I mean, I thought Monero was pretty good. He actually pushes Monero to go further with their privacy. So, these are things that, as you guys out there in the metaverse start being concerned, you want to start supporting these people who are actually leading this fight.
Yeah.
Last bit of Star Atlas news before we kind of went into the metaverse again. But,
I've still got some quotes that we didn't quite finish up. Got into a few of them. This one talks about how we can craft extra small ships. They won't need to mint. It will require materials and time, which I think is quite interesting. We do know about 9 materials so far, because on the sign-up pages it talks about local resources available. So for Oni, it's Jasperus, Chisenik, and gold. Uster has Viscovite, Dodaline, and lithium. And Mud has Tenin, Hissent. I'm not going to try that one. Diamond. Hissenium.
Yeah,
that sounds right. So that's 9 materials, and each faction's going to have like 3 available to them. And who knows how many materials it will require to make the ships. But I reckon like the harder or the better the ship is, the more resources it's going to take. So you might have to cooperate or like buy resources that you don't have available to you.
Nice.
So the Star Atlas Discord went to 146,000 this week from 143,000 week before. So that's 3,000 in growth there. You're also looking at, if you're using that club website again, that's showing the VWAP and the yields of all the ships. Now we're at a point, before you would see 146% APR on the top ships. Now the top is 112% APR for the best APR yielding ship right now. So what that means is that there's a lot of people moving into the space, moving into the Discord, buying these ships, even though Bitcoin's dragging down the price of the crypto tokens, as well as Polis and Atlas. You're seeing a lot of growth in the community, which means that you're still seeing a lot of growth. So that's something to be thought about.
This brings up an interesting dynamic, because now you're going to have ships that are increasing in value. So the APRs are lower, right, per that website from the club.
Yep.
And I think Michael's already talked about that there's going to be an infinite supply of $20 ships. So as those ships that have already been launched go up, it makes it more attractive to get the lower value ships. So I'm wondering if we're going to see people move in from their Gen 1 ships for something that's cheaper and provides a better return.
The challenge with the smaller ships, though, is they do require more maintenance. So if you're getting the ships on the very lowest end that are the most affordable, you need to be in there on a daily basis maintaining those ships. But I think one of the things that in the industry as a whole can start kicking off the rumor mill and good buzz is the fact that someone can say, hey, I spent $1,000 on a ship. That ship's value has now gone up to $1,300. And guess what? I'm making $100 a month on that ship.
Right.
So
and that's based off
there.
utility, not off of just, I bought an NFT for 1 ETH and now it's worth 5, and the only reason is because we're in a bull market for NFTs. It's I'm actually earning passive income off of this, and I've already ROI'd and I'm still earning, so there's no reason to sell. But if I did, I'd sell it for more. That's a very exciting thing.
I also wonder if there's. Go ahead.
They talk about how quickly the ships are bought out, and it's really interesting to think that they anticipated more time for people to be able to get in early, but they've just been getting snapped up. All the best APRs are disappearing.
Well, this is similar to what we've seen in Mirandus, right, with Gala Games. The you can never predict how much assets are going to be needed or where the interest is going to be and make the price competitive. Now, I don't want to make this about Gala. We know how we feel about them and how they price things, but the market's really driving more than what the original, devs thought the prices were going to be. I mean, some of the prices of these ships right now are crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Another mention from the big list of Q&As he did in the economic channel was he confirmed the longest period would be 3 hours to lock up the Polis.
3 years?
No, 3 years.
I think before he had already mentioned that.
Might have been in the foundation room.
The shortest was like 3 to 6 months, and then there was going to be variations that go all the way out to 3 years. And it's my understanding that that's how long the lockup period is. However, you are able to claim rewards quarterly.
That's my understanding as well. And I'm curious if that is with DAO voting rights. Have we heard about how that Polis is leveraged when it is locked? Is it just purely locked for an earnings, or does it allow Polis governance voting?
I don't think there's any voting initially until they work that in. But you also can pull out early, it's my understanding, but there is a penalty on that long locked stake. I could be wrong, but I seem to recall seeing that somewhere.
Has he made any comments on the returns on ships versus Polis staking?
No, and I've been keeping my eye out for that. I'm curious if people can expect a similar return on their Polis of what, in the neighborhood of 8 to 10%, 8 to 12%. And what does that look like? The only thing that I did see him mention at some point is that he was suggesting that people could take their earnings and put them back into ships. So I forget what that was in response to, but that suggests that there will be some ample rewards.
It's interesting as we talked about crafting, and as it relates to crafting, we really didn't talk about how they were going to get the initial resources into the area. Is it just through mining? Are they going to airdrop like basic level resources, or with ships, like they gave us a full supply of all the different things we would need? Do you think they'll do the same thing with crafting?
Probably initially, just kind of like as a Genesis thing, and then thereafter you will need resources to restock them. But yeah, I would say out the gate that as a way to stimulate the economy and to stimulate the crafting process or the mining process, that seems to be helpful to just give people what they need to start.
Yeah. Hey, there's a question in chat that I think a few of you can answer pretty easily around securing your assets. I know some of you use a ledger. Can someone give their thoughts on that?
So I'm one of the ones that's been using a ledger from the start, so I can share some of my thoughts on it initially. There is a little bit of process that goes into approving every single transaction, right? So every time you go through and it's like, oh, I approved that I just bought some ammo. Oh, I approved, and now that the ammo is claimed and in my wallet. Oh, I just approved that I claimed from the ship. So there is that part that you're going through this process each time. So what I did is I actually have 2 accounts now within Atlas or within Star Atlas, and I moved all of my heavy maintenance ships, the ones that require daily maintenance, into their own account off of my ledger, because those are the ones it's like, I have less risk there, but yet it still requires that day-to-day maintenance. So that's what I did. I established 2 accounts, the ships and all of the ones that are my bigger assets and my Polis and things like that, I keep on the device.
Yeah, smart. It is a bit of a hassle setting it up, but it's worth it. We definitely recommend it.
Mm-hmm. Is there any lost functionality from it?
Not yet. I think some people have problem like selecting a profile picture for their account, but
I never bothered with doing that. But that was the thing, is you're not able to select the profile picture and an associated badge.
I think in general, to answer your question, Banjo, usually with situations like this, what I've seen is that the hardware wallet adds an extra layer of tech that they have to add into the updates. So when there's a new update coming out, there's always that chance that it's not properly positioned with Ledger or Trezor or whatever kind of hardware device you're using. So you might be delayed sometimes, and that's usually the only risk.
And just
Go ahead, Jesse.
Jesse or Fancy, and there's another question again. People are trying to figure out how to secure their assets. How are you going to manage the 2 accounts, 1 player challenge?
Well, the 2 accounts sit in the same faction for me. It's going to be a greater challenge at gameplay time if those accounts are in different factions. The thing that I'm more concerned about is that, first of all, with the ledger, you still have to set up or acknowledge auto signing, blind signing within the device itself, because there's some things that Star Atlas needs to do. But my question is going to come up when we reach a point in gameplay where the interaction is an interaction between you and someone else, and it becomes disruptive to the experience itself. So will there be some new form of blind signing that accounts for that, so that you can say, hey, it would be nice to be able to select and say, look, unless I'm trying to transfer an asset out of my wallet, I just want you to go ahead and approve the process. Because like right now, I don't really care. I mean, for fuel and ammo, I wish there was a way for me to blind sign on those on this account and me be able to select that.
Right.
That would be convenient in the future, and hopefully that's something that becomes available.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up Swagner's response to this. I know he did have one.
He did.
Yeah, about
He went in depth. It's not there either. Yeah, he went in depth on the fact that they were working on things on their side as well, but that the actual problem is basically on the Solana network, and it's just basically they've had a lot of growth and they're a newer chain. So Ethereum has been around a long time, and all this stuff that you're seeing on Ethereum in the metaverse has been built out over multiple years, right? Solana came in second, and in the beginning, they didn't have a lot of the things that are necessary for a robust NFT market. And so they've been stepping it up, and it's just a growing pains thing. You're seeing the exact same thing happen on the Cardano network right now. They've released a lot of NFTs, don't have a lot of the infrastructure set up for these games and markets to actually be fully functional with the same kind of user experience that you're expecting coming from a Ethereum side of the metaverse. So it's just growing pains.
I did see that it was mentioned somewhere that the Star Atlas team does have contingency plans in the event that they ever run into issues with the network as a whole. I like that they're forward thinking enough to say, hey, if that ever became such a problem transaction wise, or it just put us in a hole to where we couldn't function, do we have a backup plan? And it seems that we do.
Yeah,
it made me feel good
I
seeing
can't
that he
find
was.
that.
You had it earlier, but I don't see it back there.
Yeah, I had to delete a couple things to add them throughout.
He definitely did mention that they were taking it seriously on their end as well. He wasn't trying to, and this is what I like about him, is that he wasn't trying to throw it off like we've seen other projects do, like, oh, it's Ethereum's fault. He didn't say it's Solana's fault. He said, hey, these problems are based in Solana, but we're working on it on our side as well to try to see if we can alleviate the problem on our own without having to deal with Solana, which I thought was the right way to go about it. Shout out to Rob Mega. I didn't want to let this one get away. I think we've talked about this before, but Rob Mega from the Guild, have they ever clarified what the actual difference between Gen 1 ships and Gen 2 ships, etc., will be besides nostalgia?
Well, from what I remember, there was mention of Wagner saying that you would know the difference over time as more ships are being crafted, brought into the ecosystem, that if you saw one of the Gen 1s, you'd know that it's a Gen 1. So
just by aesthetics, or does it have some other benefit?
Might be down the line, but go ahead, Fancy.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's confirmed anything like that. I think people have been asking about in the foundation room too.
And another thing I've been thinking about as far as generations and how many there are going to be, is that also going to happen and take place for the modules? Because there could be Gen 1 modules that might be at a higher price point, and they could be just as robust, or even, I don't know, like there could be Gen 1 modules and then Gen 2 modules and Gen 3 modules, and for whatever is going to happen down the line, because that would be pretty interesting for the market as a whole. The rare, scarcity level of Gen 1 modules, and how cool they would look versus a Gen 2 module, if it's, crafted in a different way, or are they all going to look the same? Who knows?
Get that nice nostalgia look, or the even robustness, because if you think about it, think about the all the materials that were made back in like the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Some of that stuff's still being used today.
Yeah. Yeah.
compared to some of the crap that sometimes they make now, where it breaks as soon as you use
Yeah.
it.
Well,
You
now-
look at the pack light and the herb. You know,
When I
it
was a kid, speaking of those types of things, in that new hoopty car that we've seen, I forget what it's called.
The Fimbo Lobby.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I used to go to demolition derbies, and I don't even think they have those anymore. But back then, you could use an old Mercury, old Fords, old Chryslers, and those things were tanks, looked like these cars, so they could smash into each other. Now, with all the new cars with the tin sides and the airbags, I don't think they would hold up the same. So there was definitely a difference in quality of build.
Get
I'm
a 60
definitely
Chevy
grabbing
versus a 2012 Accord. Good luck.
Right?
You're definitely gonna see me ride in the lobby. That's just gonna happen. So
That's just going to
Automatic.
happen.
as soon as they start, I might actually catch the sale on that one.
Yeah, so I'll run through the last couple screenshots. Bodhi asked him if any news about the Titans, and nothing yet. So we're still waiting on the big boys.
I don't know that even needs. You think in terms of need and priority for the company as a whole, and the way that this version of the metaverse is developing. I don't even see a need for Titan class ships in 2022. I just don't see it.
No, I don't see it either. It sounds like a lot of extra complication for no reason.
Well, the
Mhm.
need could come on part of the team itself needing the funding and more money. So the sales of those ships would definitely help on their end. But as far as having them as an investor, you're not going to be able to do anything. But I guess.
Well,
Well,
I'm just meaning from the aspect of once you release those ships, they're in the game, right? And so
Right.
now you got to deal with what you've done to the game because they're
Sure,
doing
sure.
whatever they're doing. You know, it's just an extra.
Well, from a
Lot of
funding standpoint, think of this way: where they said those ships could sell for $5 million. What is there going to be 5 of them? That's 25
Mhm.
million. We did 60
Right.
million in ship sales in December alone. So there are
Mhm.
other ways to make that money.
Sure.
Yeah, and if you consider like how many people will use these assets, especially like in the early stages where you don't need crew members, you're basically like getting a whole team to design for like a small number of people, even though they are like the largest investors.
Yeah. And what's funny about the Titan ships, as we now are experiencing just maintenance with the current large ships or medium ships that we have, and if you got to log in every day to restock and refuel and do the 4 Rs, I could only imagine what type of help or team or squad or guild you'd need who's responsible and diligent enough to get in. And like, is it just one person? Because once the game is live, I guess in that sense, you're gonna have a Titan ship ran by hundreds of
Yeah.
people. So it's
Well,
going to be like,
they've talked about like it's basically your whole guild. Like that's your
Yeah.
home base for your guild.
So-
That's the Titan ship. You know.
we could
How
third craft
big?
on that.
Do we have like preliminary? I mean, we've seen it in the lineup somewhere. Is it 5,000 meters?
I think that was the estimate. Yeah,
So that's a big ship. That's a large coordinated effort, and if it
Hell
isn't,
yeah.
it should be.
that's a city
Right.
with boosters.
Right.
Actually, I thought the mothership was over 5,000 meters plus. The Titan's only 25 to 5,000.
Yeah, the mothership is supposed to be like the size of America or something. I could have swore I saw. So is Pablo or Danny somewhere on some show where they were talking about a ship the size of like America as in a mothership. That's a big ship. I don't know exactly what the ultimate size of that was, but I was thinking that the Titans were up to 5,000, which is still a large ship.
That's still pretty big.
Yeah.
So this week they also reduced and increased some of the ship's earnings based on some stale data they had when initially calculating it.
Did we know what they
So-
were before? I saw this, but I didn't know really what to make of it.
Well, the Opal Jet was better than the X4 significantly, so people had like thousands of them. And then this happened. You can see all of the 47 crying faces.
Right. I was one of those when they nerfed the Thripid, because that was a pretty good earner.
Yeah,
compared to
so
the larger
the
ships.
X4 got buffed, the Opal Jet got nerfed, the Ogrica Tripid got nerfed as well, and it was around like 25k when that happened, I believe. So
That's
it dropped back down to 15,
Wow.
and Grenadier jumped up to 15 because the like competition in that bracket got a bit more even.
Hmm.
So with these changes, do we think that those ships are still getting their ROI within the year? Because as we know, if we're trusting that club website, then there's several ships. The majority of ships now, actually, if you buy them today, are not going to get you that ROI within the year. So these adjustments on the ships that people have already bought, are they still, going to be on point, or what do you think?
Well, the Opal Jet is still showing one of the highest, so I think we're good there. If we were to go ahead and look at what they have, Opal, the Thimble ERP is giving 112% right now. The Opal Jet is at 105, and then the F4 93, and I'm not sure what I got to come back and look at what the other one is.
The X4 is showing 105 too, yeah.
But the Agrica,
the Agrica,
65%.
So we're getting information that the club website has the wrong Atlas price, so it's I think incorrect. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Jeff. So take that with that information with a grain of salt, and everybody out there.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this was the last thing to do with Star Atlas then. Ray, if you want to.
Yeah, so, the Play to Earn News, Twitter space, Twitter profile, rather, check them out. There was an online competition, and maybe to some surprise, there was a Star Atlas there in the top 4 of the most anticipated games of 2022. So, a Rory project, I'm surprised wasn't up there, as it was, or it seems to be one of the most promising projects that's gonna be playable sooner than many others on the Solana network. Although Illuvium is on Ethereum, so yeah, that's great for Star Atlas. That is enough interest for it to make top 4 in this competition. And
does anyone have any information on Soul Chicks or Monster Infinite? I'm not familiar with those.
I'm just glad we beat Monster Infinite.
Yeah,
we're not last. We're not last.
Our resident in our guild here that goes by the name of PG. He was invested into Soul Chicks, but there was some controversy of them. Can't say exactly, but it wasn't positive all around. Something about the white paper and it being copied, or just like brought to market too quick and just a replica of something else, and maybe not able to come out with what they were saying they were going to come out with. But nevertheless, not the expert on Soul Chicks here. And yeah, but just like Fancy said, I'm glad they're not below Monster Infinity.
A lot of those polls are really community driven. So we might see just 4 games that are up there because the community socialized the poll really heavily. It's really hard now. I mean, there's a lot of projects that are coming. I can't keep on top of them at all anymore. There's just so much to try and understand. You really have to just pick a few that you feel are going to be the right ones.
That's a good point you just made there, Banjo. Everybody has to remember this, just the current state of media. When these polls from these media organizations go out, they go out to a certain community, not to the actual entire crypto metaverse space. And so, like Banjo said, you're seeing maybe they're heavily weighted with Soul Chicks people. I mean, I've never heard of this organization, so I wasn't there to vote for Star Atlas. So I don't know if any of you were, so let's take that.
You broke up there at the end, Bonafide. But yeah.
When these polls come out,
Are we losing Bonafide?
Seems like it.
Am I back now, or?
Yeah, you're back now.
Yep.
You seem fine.
All right.
Yeah, so Lumina, from what I was researching or heard back then when the game was released, just on Soul Chicks, that they were responsible for the bottleneck, and it was a failed project, I guess. But there was some other stuff that I was hearing that didn't give that much confidence into it. But yeah, Star Atlas is not one of those types of games.
Indeed. So you guys want like a because I have it separated in a different account. I can use one ship fleet as an example if you want an earnings example.
Banjo,
Why not? And you're muted, Mancho.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, why
Sorry.
not? Why not? Go into it.
So let me hear. And I was just doing the math on this here, so this is probably a good time to show it here. Able to see my screen okay?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Share.
Yeah, when it comes to these other projects that are being voted on by people, it could be just the hype phase of the game and how many people got in initially. Because Solana and Ethereum, they all have their different demographic supporters and maxis for the chain, or many variables come into play. But if you look deeper than the surface level, Star Atlas definitely shines brighter than a lot of these other games.
This is interesting. Lumina's saying it was confirmed that the seasoned ranks are just because cosmetic.
Yeah, Santi actually
that was
confirmed
shared.
that in Ash's Twitter space
Okay,
Friday
cool.
as well.
That makes me feel better about moving things to my leisure.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not something it's a big deal now, but at the same time, Santi was saying he would have liked to have seen something, and that they do hear everybody saying that they want a lot of people in the community want them to mean something. So that's also on the table. But the official plan is not for them to be anything but cosmetic.
I would hope that you can get something on the ship that would. The thing is that if you're going to be dedicated and having them staking for such a long time, it would be nice if you were ever to resell a Gen 1. It shows the track record other than what's on the blockchain, of the history of it just being staked for that long. Unless once we finish staking and they're actually in operational mode in the game, then it's just for now that we're gonna get those.
You could get like a little, extra XP for your crew or something.
A little something. Right?
Yeah, a little something.
Or they allow the skill development of the crew while it's been staked for store.
Right.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
But there are already a load of little something. There's so many badges already and satellites, and
we want more.
Yeah, a lot of them will add up into like a big advantage.
Right.
All right, is this you, Jesse?
Yeah, I wasn't able to. I gotta fix that issue with sharing my screen, but I uploaded a screenshot. And so, as I mentioned, right before the 16th, when Score started, there was a bunch of Opal jets that were really undervalued. They were about $186 at the time. I think they're about $320 right now. So I don't know what the actual VWAP is for this, but as you can see here, for 68 ships, the daily rewards is 832, and I think Atlas right now is 0.88. It's fluctuated a little bit, but it's down from what it was originally, of course. So if we took that 832, multiplied it by 0.088, we're going to get 73. But then I need to go ahead and divide that by the number of ships, which is 68. That comes to $1.07 per day per ship. So multiplying that by 30 days, it's $32 a ship, essentially. That's in here. And of course, multiplying that again by the 68, that's about 2,196 USDC or US dollar equivalent for staking these Opal jets. Now, the Opal jets themselves, the daily maintenance on these, as you can see here, they're all at about 93, 94%. You basically get about 2 days out of this for, I think, the repair, the food, and the fuel, and about 5 days out of ammo right now. So it's something that I don't have, you don't have to pop in here every single day as you would with the extra small ships. But that's kind of what you're getting at right now for the Opal jets. And so, yeah, that's the reason I'm as I'm looking at Polis, and I'm seeing Polis down to $4, and I just see that as being an absolute steal. One of the things that NFTs and especially the crypto gaming market is really identifying is that what seems to have the value in the moment is based on where everyone is placing their attention.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Right now, the attention is on the ships. But again, the day before, I literally bought these a couple days at 186 before they went back up to over $300 because everyone was waiting to see what was going to happen. And I think the similar things we're going to see with Polis at $4 now, that as we get, what are we, 2.5 weeks out from the DAO, at least the target date. We don't know, again, if that is the actual date, but that's the target date. And if that target date holds,
they removed
you
all
have
of the target dates from the roadmap, so that may not be confirmed anymore. People have been talking that like maybe they're delaying it, maybe it's going to be moved forward, but it's still unknown at the moment.
You made a really good point there, Jesse, and this isn't financial advice at all, but if you're investing with the eye towards buying red and selling green, then perhaps a strategy right now would be to be buying Polis and waiting for the DAO to pop, and then rolling that into the ships when the attention shifts, if that happens that way.
Yeah, it's really going to depend on what we can get from the contracts and how many people decide to go into the 3-year and all the different options, because the more people who join, the more diluted the pool will be.
Right.
Yeah. The amount of that you're going to be able to earn off of your Polis is definitely going to play a big part. So we'll see.
Well, that's the interesting part, because Polis definitely has a lot more variables. It's got the governance aspect, but let's say we remove that completely. What is the earning aspect? And that's what people are curious about. Is it going to be similar to ships? Is it going to be in that 8 to 12% range? Well, and as you just mentioned, Bonafide, the factors that weigh in against that are how many people are participating. So if you have a lot of people participating, the rewards go down. But if you also have a lot of people participating, the value of Polis itself goes up. So it's going to be an interesting kind of a juggle between all of these variables.
Yeah, and they really are like gamifying like financial tools, really. So like arbitraging, they're making that easy by just anticipating what's going to happen in the game and trying to be like a step ahead. I feel like that's going to be a constant theme with Star Atlas.
Yeah, and with a lot of these blue chip, NFT games, and how they're being built, it's almost inevitable to reap benefits of, not only having the confidence but investing. Although there's always a risk, it's just almost going to be a success for you as an investor. And not financial advice, but this is just from my experience. If there's a community that and a team and a white paper and a tokenomics and everything, kind of all the boxes check off, where there's ultimately that risk, but it's just like with all the projects that I got into, which I put a lot of time and like tens of thousands of hours of just watching videos on and learning and just reading, I could say that I've just made out well with just doing that constantly across. It's very time consuming and tedious, but being early is what they're going to incentivize people to do with these rewards, with them being so high. So.
Speaking of being early, I see Luco's comment here with the current jet price. The monthly return is about 8%. That is accurate. But because I was early and I bought these ships prior to score, I'm actually at about 17, 18% because of the cost of the ship prior to score. It was
you bought in at about 50% of the VWAP, didn't you? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of good opportunities. I know people are going to be waiting for more.
And that's the nature of it. It's like if you wait for confirmation on things as everyone else is doing, then you're going to pay the average price that everyone else is paying. Again, not financial advice. That's just the nature of things. Of if you're going to speculate, as a lot of us do, being early to these projects as a whole, all of these things, everything about Star Atlas, even by not only design, but by the way that it is shared by the CEO himself, this is a grand experiment.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and with a lot of projects that are trailblazing in their own right, their games for the space, it's almost like they're just as we are going along for the ride of just building out something with the best everyone can, to the best they know how. So, and if they don't have the knowledge or the power to do that, it takes time to get that, and this is where we're at.
And from the outside looking in, for people that aren't familiar with the project, because it's been interesting, I've been having more and more conversations with friends that are in crypto, but they're not in the NFT or gaming side of crypto, but now the markets have their attention because of what they see happening. There's some watching the show right now that are friends of mine that come from that space. They hadn't really been a part of gaming before, but now it's hard to deny that this is a massive on-ramp. I mean, I was showing them by looking at, even CoinGecko, where you can do the categories, and how GameFi right now is a $24 billion market. It has a $24 billion market cap.
Right.
And that's just going to continue to grow because it's accessible. It's the aspect that people feel drawn to because they understand it, and it's not just about numbers and crypto as a whole. Which leads me to one of the questions I wanted to ask here collectively amongst you, but then also the people that are paying attention right now in the comments. It'd be great to get just a couple words or even a sentence on like what makes gaming fun for you in this space, because right now we're in an interesting place where honestly, is Star Atlas fun? Is DeFi Kingdoms fun? I'm making money, but do I feel challenged by it? Not really.
Yeah,
Do I feel like there's a social component other than the time I spend in the Discord? Not really. What are the aspects of gaming that make it so that the game is fun if you pulled out the earnings potential side of it? Granted,
Right.
I love the fact, and let me preface this, I love the fact that Star Atlas said, hey, look, unlike other companies, we're not going to make you wait to begin earning. I'd love to be earning on my elves and my exemplar avatars in Gala, but that's a long way off.
Right.
So I love the fact that they made it so that we could stake and earn. But my question is like, what are the components of gaming as a whole that you feel are fun? What are those things? Do you need to be challenged by it? Do you need to be a social component where you can interact with other people?
Right. So yeah, I'd like to share that if we took out, like you said, the earning potential of any game, like a legacy or traditional game company creating games, and you took out the community part of it, whether it's Twitter, Discord, or the actual YouTubers who create content from being inspired, and then you could just comment and talk with them outside of Discord. Outside of that, the top projects that I would say would be an Axie Infinity. I'm not doing a Splinterlands or Gods Unchained type of card game, but as far as Axie Infinity is concerned, there's enough breeding that can take place where there's thousands of different options of how you can play your cards. And although the meta is always figured out, where you're going to have more purchasing of those particular type of Axies, you can always, without caring about the meta, put a team together and just play against someone who you have to outwit when it comes to the energy expenditure, and then being conservative with card play, and it's just like with a class advantage with damage output. So I very much enjoy any game that would be able to do that outside of making money, because it stimulates that part of me that finds it interesting. But now, when it comes to the community, which is ultimately builds around any game, whether you take part in it or not, right? For Destiny, right, on Xbox, or a GTA, for example, you could do a whole bunch of role playing now, and you're gonna eventually just build relationships and feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself. And that's where all games went, anyways. When the days of System Link with Halo 2, right? You could play at home with friends, and then have a wire going out the apartment window down to the next floor, and then you come and gather afterwards and talk about how fun it was to play together. And that's before anyone could play online. But I just personally enjoy Axie Infinity. I know there's other games out there in the NFT space that you can play and just enjoy the grind of just harvesting resources that don't have any particular use case yet. If you just like to grind, you can just do that, and you would enjoy your own solitude with your computer and grinding it up. So it varies depending on the person, but yeah.
Personally,
go ahead, Bonafide.
Personally, for me, if you'd asked me years ago, I would have said gameplay. But then I didn't have time for games anymore, and I stopped playing for years. And now, with the ability to earn, I came back for the ability to earn. But what I noticed almost immediately, a part of, when I joined Rome, was that I missed the social aspect the most. Being a part of a guild, getting a good excuse to hang out with you guys all the time and shoot the shit and all that we do, is what I love the most about gaming, period. And I didn't realize that until I had this experience of coming back to a guild before we actually have a game to play together.
Yeah.
So for me, I think broadly, when you look at games, where I find my time in the game is usually through exploration. I love to see what's just over the horizon, what's just around the next corner in a cave. I also like the idea of the min-maxing and going for the trophies. I'm not the guy who's going to sit there and try to get every Xbox trophy for every game. But there is something about leveling up that gives me that dopamine hit. And as for the MMO aspect of it, I think I've said this before previously, but it wasn't until Mirandus and Star Atlas that I saw myself back in a guild. I mean, I was a guild leader in a couple different games and, in a rather large guild, and I had a great time, but it's a job. I mean, I think we all know that there's some extra work. And that's why some guilds wax and wane, is because the ability or willingness to work comes and goes with interest. So I think for me, it's exploration, min-maxing, and social.
For sure, yeah. So to close us out on Star Atlas, I got the video loaded up we was talking about earlier, the Star Atlas pre-alpha gameplay, where somebody was actually driving the Visa Sopod. And we're going to talk about the other games after that. Feel free to stick around if you want to learn something.
Before you do that, I did have one other comment on gameplay, and it was going back to Monty's original comment here about storyline, but more important to me, the choices that determine the path. I think that for me, I like and he also asked later, like, what are some of our favorite games? For me, I tend to gravitate towards strategy games, but when it comes to even MMOs or any game, I like the idea behind the consequence, the virtual consequence of choices.
Yeah.
And that is one that brings an element of realism to a game. And I think that is something that's really going to stand out within blockchain games because there's real money on the table. So
one of the games I would think like that storyline and choices, Fable. I love Fable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I'm drawn to MMOs so much, is because, or role-playing games, because the choices really do define the story. And why I don't get as drawn into games, and especially a lot of the new NFT or play-to-earn games, because they feel too basic. They feel like they're at best mobile games that I'd spend a few minutes on, where some of the MMOs or first-person games like the Fallout series, I can spend hours upon hours in.
Yeah.
Oh, do you imagine? What was that one where the auction house, the real auction house, I think it was Diablo 3, right? Where they had it up for a bit and then they had to shut it down because people were getting scammed and all that. You imagine like a Fallout version of that?
Well, not that we went this way on purpose, but the Fallout just got approved for a series on Amazon. So there's going to be a Fallout series coming to TV.
As long as it's not like a Netflix adaptation, I think we're good.
All right, here the video is then.
So now we know that that's a live pilot. It actually makes much more sense to me, because I thought it seemed a little bit loose if you're trying to describe this, Visas Opod flying in really smooth and dropping down.
Yeah.
But it actually created some level of, we've all been there before, flying like a helicopter in a game or a ship, right? There's a little bit of sloppiness in there, and I really appreciate that.
What makes now that I look at it through the lens of knowing that someone was piloting that ship, and I say that because all of the buzz from people outside of the community that, and even people within that assume, all right, that's cinematic. What about this makes it gameplay? The fact that that was someone piloting that ship, what would have done that whole video so much better? Not the video itself, but to support that with now actually saying, hey, here's a video from the pilot's perspective of bringing that in. Because I'm curious, like, did that pilot have to consider anything other than just joystick steering it? Or did he have to say, all right, now the landing gear is coming down. Now I have to change the thrusters on the wings so I can fit in the hangar. Like, how much of that was automated and how much of that was pilot engagement?
That's a good question. Is how much Microsoft Flight Sim do you really want? I mean, do you want to have control of every switch and every dial and every joystick maneuver, or do you want just some basics to fly in and make it feel like you're a pilot?
Oh my God! Shout out to that game. That game was a pain. It was fun once you got good at it, but it was a pain.
Yeah, I laugh because so first of all, I think it's pretty simple from what you're saying, Banjo. It might get a little bit more complicated, but maybe not. So we don't know that for sure. But as far as doing 50 million things for an incoming landing with a technically advanced spaceship, it would be pretty overwhelming. And then whatever damage it occurs, like we talked about earlier, you wouldn't want any of that happening. But I laughed when the video finished, and because now that we know officially that it was, whether you believed it or not, the ending when it lands, it was kind of a rough drop. So it wasn't like a smooth, it touched and then it kind of fell into its suspension. It was almost like they just cut the ignition and it just fell down, and then you see it just like bouncing. So that gave me the experience of it. Like, okay, that's what made it for me real. That someone was piloting it and didn't know how far down the ground was, maybe from the ship, and that's what I was thinking when I watched it.
Well, Ray, I want to see you parallel park that tree arrow in a hangar.
Well, I don't know if
Let's take bets. Let's take bets on if you rub something.
What I'll say to that is when Rome builds a Titan ship, depending how long that's going to take, I'll just park it right into the backside of the Titan. But I don't have to worry about any of
Right.
And the music, man, the music. I love the music. It gets me so excited. Yeah. So kudos to the team with the music. Love that. But hey, if you're in the Metaverse in Star Atlas and you happen to have a pair of Curry NFTs, and do you want to be running around with them? I don't know. But hey, Bonafide, you tell us.
Right on. So this will probably be the last update from the Steph Curry flows saga. So on the 7th, the full court functionality in Townstar went live, and you were able to receive the fourth NFT from that original NFT purchase, which enabled you to play the game in Townstar. So for the shoes I basically got 13 town a day in rewards for applying the shoes to the Townstar game. And then I get a 50% reward above that shoe. So that's about, another 6 town. And then the courts themselves, you have to have the 2 courts. They give you basically a total of about 6 town as well. So you're looking at about 25 town per day in rewards based off of this purchase.
Which town right now? Is that like 60 cents?
It's at like 60 cents, yeah. So if you look at it, as we all know, I bought the shoes fairly high and I bought the courts fairly low. And so looking at it, you're at under a
year. You cut out a bit, but it sounds like you're saying about a year ROI. Which, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, as long as the value holds, my concern about town is that, it's incredibly deflationary because it's got a quadrillion in maximum supply. So it's going to be getting pumped out there. So hopefully if that reward structure stays the same, hopefully the price of town holds. Otherwise it could end up being 2 years or more.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, as we know, it's all about market forces at the end of the day. Bitcoin, as well as their own ecosystems, market forces. So we'll see how it goes. I did my estimate. My estimate's actually around 200 days, but it's like, I feel like town could go lower. If we go into a bear market with Bitcoin, town's definitely going lower. If we have a rebound, the town's probably going to shoot up past $1 again. So we'll see how it all plays out.
And if you have something on this, Banjo, then I don't want to step on it, but I have a question after that can get an answer. But my question is when do we see, and do we ever see the GameFi projects and coins ever breaking away from the dominant in market influence of Bitcoin?
I was hoping we'd see it this time, and we didn't.
I think we're still going to see it. I think some of the coins were already starting to see some resistance and aren't going lockstep with Bitcoin. So I think once we start getting to Call of Duty level gameplay or Fortnite level game, where that many people around the world are playing these games, then I think you'll start to see the native coin kind of break away from Bitcoin.
I think the biggest part of it, Jesse, is that we're not really dealing with their own economies yet.
Right.
For any of these games, besides Axie Infinity, they don't really have their own economy yet. And Axie Infinity, which we'll get to later, their economy is tanking for different reasons. I don't know that Bitcoin pulled the price of SOP down any further.
Right.
I think it was down on its own, and it had nothing to do with Bitcoin. So you might actually see your first divergence in that community if you see Axie kind of fix those things while Bitcoin's still going down. So we'll see how that goes. But just to finish out with the Curry shoes, the biggest aspect of the purchase is what I'm seeing here. So this is a guy on Twitter, and he's asking to trade a different set of sandbox shoes, not the Curry Flows, but a different set of sandbox shoes for a hat that you could also use in sandbox. So this is the kind of thing you've seen typically in games in the past, and you're going to start seeing this in the metaverse, where you're going to have swag and you're going to have collector's items that people are going to be willing to trade for. So he's willing to trade a hat that recently sold for 5.5 ETH for some Townstar shoes, or some sandbox shoes that you could get for around $300 a piece. So he's asking for you to put in $600 to make whatever the price of 5.5 ETH would be, which is quite a bit more.
The Curry shoes look different in the three different marketplaces, or the three different places they have them. Galas looked fairly sharp, I guess. Who had the best one? Sandbox is very pixelated.
So this is a picture of the shoes, how they look in Townstar.
Okay.
I like the I mean this version to me looks pretty cool, and then the Decentraland version also looks pretty nice. The sandbox version looks very sandboxy, just kind of like these, but a little bit different. And
it doesn't feel like there's enough artistic expression in the limited amount of pixels you see here. Really feel like you're getting an awesome shoe. Like the Steph Curry shoe, the variation between the pixelated version like this with Sandbox and then the Gala or Decentraland version, those look much cleaner. And if you were to see them, you're like, oh, I recognize what those are. As we're here, it's really hard to tell.
I think at the end of the day, it's all going to be about wallet checks, kind of like how Twitter's going to allow you to do here in the future, where you're going to be able to show off your NFTs. I mean, a lot of it's going to be based off of the name. If you take it back to like World of Warcraft, there were certain swords or shields or whatever that looked particularly cool, but at the end of the day, it was more a statement of you had a particular item, not how cool that thing looked. Some of those things were super ugly, and everybody wanted to remember that.
Right. And now that you'll be able to verify, like you're saying, either or when it comes on Twitter, or in general, if you know how to go on Etherscan or check people's addresses, which will become more commonplace, I think, then, because I agree with you, just like these sneakers, it's really just the name behind anything, just as in the old world, as we're in the new world, is what's going to dictate the price. And, so I don't necessarily agree with or like it personally, as far as, how it looks. But if it wasn't for Gala Games, I think, well played to them doing it across 3 different metaverses with different styles to get that visual effect, then I don't think it would have been that successful. Just being a sandbox shoe, because people would have been like, okay, what is that? What is Steph Curry about that? That's just a money grab.
Yeah, that's nothing. He has nothing to do with sandbox. You're right. Yeah, so
right.
That's the thing. Yeah,
right. And then is Curry's style and how he wanted the people to perceive those shoes as an expression of him? Is it even there on the more artistic, aesthetically pleasing type of thing? Like I wouldn't have seen him. Even if I didn't know Steph Curry, I'm like, what the hell is this? This is obviously money purposes.
I don't know much about it, but I'm curious about that wizard hat. Like, what's the background on that to where it's being traded for 5.5 ETH? Because that's a similar kind of item in the sandbox metaverse that obviously people think it's. I don't know if it has utility or what the deal is.
Well, it better have, and I'm pretty sure it does.
And wouldn't it be something an added utility if all of a sudden, like, even if it was just one time, Steph Curry creates a video saying, "Hey, thank you for the purchase of this," and the only way you could access it is through a wallet that had the shoe in it, or he did something where on the side of the court, pre-game or post-game, he would do something specific for the community, and that was the only way you could be a part of that circle. That's the piece that still feel like it's missing when they use celebrities to do these types of drops.
And who's gonna be the first celebrity to make like their release sex tape and NFT and sell it, right? Who's going to be the Kardashian that gets famous like the Kardashians because they put something out on an NFT?
Yeah.
So that was the. Go ahead.
Just real quick. So when we talk about these people, right? These figureheads in the world, whether celebrity, sports, whoever. The community. When we talk about community and connect it with these names like Curry, we use the word community, but there is. From my experience and from where I come from, the NFT space, like the hardcore or grassroots community level, where you do your research to see if there's even a community there to invest your money. I don't feel like the community, other than just wanting to buy it because of the recognition of the name, I don't feel like there's a genuine community. Maybe with Snoop Dogg from his just whole, the rap scene, right? So you got the sports scene, you got all these different scenes, and I can't speak in absolute on all of them as far as the community, but if eventually you're going to have the people who just want it for the name and might not necessarily care about basketball, right? And then how does that community develop in a way? There's going to be two different aspects of the community. You could probably argue that that's what's happening now, right?
An example of that is crypto.com. They launched a whole bunch of Snoop stuff, and it's crypto.com is not like this tight knit community. It's, it's an exchange, but yet they sold a ton of his stuff. So that's kind of a little bit different than the environment he's probably going to try and create within the sandbox.
Right.
So the last bit of pricing on the shoes is that you bought the original NFT and you got the 3 other versions, and so the Gala Games one is selling for this particular one, which is a tier 2, is selling currently for about $2,000, and then the original is still selling for about $1,000, and then the sandbox version, going back to what you were saying, Jesse, is only selling for about $6. So all in all, you're looking at about a $3,100 if you want to just try to sell off everything right now instead of getting the ROI, or you could actually still keep earning the ROI and sell off and take profits for about $1,000, I guess.
What was the mint price?
The mint price was $300. If you got it on the mint, you got it for $300. You're a winner all the way around. As it is with any kind of mint of value, right? Something like this of this magnitude, yeah, absolutely. Last thing on these, I just wanted to bring this one up. This was in that chat. So this was the original tweet where the guy is talking about trying to do the trade in the sandbox items, NFTs. And further down in the chat, you had this guy who tried to chime in and say, "Can I send the real life version of the shoe?" And the guy's like, "Nah, I don't pay more than $75 for real life shoes." And the guy replied, so I thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, I felt this tweet very much because I said this when I originally bought them. I never paid more than $200 for a pair of shoes, and I don't, unless they're like some nice dress shoes. I'm not going that high. I would go higher than 200 for some nice dress shoes, but I'm not going to do it for sneakers. And so the idea that already this, in a way, the sneaker hits are kind of moving in. The people that are into this kind of fashion and stuff, fashion's moving into the metaverse, and you're starting to see it here.
We all did that with the jackets, even in Star Atlas. Yeah. I mean, what were those, like $500 jackets?
It was for something, yeah. Never did that before in real life. But we're not in real life. We're in the metaverse. All right, guys, we'll get it straight.
Yeah, values are way different in the metaverse, man. You can't afford to be in every metaverse. But you can work real hard in one metaverse
Yeah.
and get to another.
Right. There you go. That's funny.
So that's to move on to that. I don't think I have any more updates on that. I'll be quietly earning in the background on the flows, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe if there's some big news where they sell for high, in the future, I'll bring it back up. But otherwise than that,
Awesome.
Let's roll with it, Ray.
All right. So talking about Axie Infinity, they trailblazed the NFT gaming space. You could give credit to what is it called? Freaking the cats that you bred. I can't even. I'm drawing a blank.
Crypto
back in
kitties.
20 there you
Crypto
go.
kitties.
Crypto kitties.
Yeah.
All these names we have to remember with crypto in it. Okay, but nevertheless, we're talking about some Axie Infinity, and I pulled this up on CryptoSlam.io just before we went live. So here's the 7-day NFT collecting rankings by sales for the sale volume. So we have the market taking a shit overall, depending on the many variables you want to talk about. But just like we talked about earlier, that SLP was already in the crapper for a while before any of these market fluctuations took place, whether government or just tax loss harvesting and liquidations. So it's still up there, and it's on its side chain Ronin here. So we're not on, and I say we're because I'm invested. You heard that, Gala Games? I'm invested. So wait, what happened? So so basically, we're doing pretty well still compared to and this is, mind you, this is the only what is this?
It's
my
the SLP price I brought up. Sorry.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I
Cool.
had a slide prepared.
I was like, that's not one of my slides. What's going on?
Yeah.
So I just want to make the point that out of NFT gamings, there is no NFT gamings in the top 5. Not that I know of. I don't know what Fanta Bear is. These are usually on the Ethereum network, just NFT profile picture projects, as we know, Bored Ape Yacht Club. So Axie Infinity is still leading as the NFT gaming project or protocol, and next to that is the Sandbox. So just want to, for the last 7 days,
any of those compare though. I mean, if another way I might look at this chart is I might take the number of transactions or the total sales volume and divide it by the number of transactions. And in this case, with 300,000 transactions, like Bored Ape Yacht Club, they're not a game, so they're kind of like in different classes. I don't know if they add up the same. I think the chart that I look at that kind of gives me an idea in the GameFi world is when you go to CoinGecko, go to categories, and go to GameFi, and that's the one that kind of like matches up the different gaming NFTs.
Yeah, without a doubt, that would be a better reference as far as any NFT gaming protocols are concerned. But it just goes to show that if Ethereum had cheaper fees, all these numbers would be higher. I'm sure.
Yeah.
And besides that, comparing Axie to any other project, I guess on Ethereum or maybe others, other networks, the numbers are always, or not for the most part, but generally higher because there's a lot of demand for particular gaming NFTs outside of just having an NFT project that's popular from its history or just from its certain run up in recent time.
Well, doing what Jesse just shared, if we look at just GameFi coins, Axie's at the top with about a 5.1 mil market cap. Right behind it at 4.5 is Sandbox, and right behind that is Gala at 2.5.
There you go.
And one of the Ray's darlings recently, DeFi Kingdoms, is at number 5 with 1 million. So I've never looked at this sorting. It is pretty telling, and actually,
I think you mean billion on those with a B, right?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, billion.
So, but yeah, you're right. So projects, depending on how they're developing and what they do, that makes them stand out from other projects. Really go under the radar for a long while, months even, until, and even on other chains, which DeFi Kingdoms is on. Ethereum, Axie Infinity was on Ethereum, but then they created their own sidechain, and with that, over time, there was an issue with the economy. In the last couple of weeks, it's been at the forefront of conversation because the team allowed the community it was basically an open forum for anyone to create videos talking about what they would do to help fix the economy when it comes to the SLP price. And there was a lot of support and also inquiries and just videos and Twitter threads that were created that the team was looking at and sifting through for the last, I guess, 2 weeks or so. And so you could check out the article. Just visit their the Discord page. It's in the announcements, or you can check out their Twitter. This is just a snapshot of the beginning of the article.
A question for you with Axie. So right now we're probably about 2 of the 3 months into the Ron farming through staking. Right. Is there any more news since we're only about like 4 weeks out or so now from the end of that cycle? Is there any news on what that looks like?
So no, there's a speculation, and with good reason, because I'm thinking, right, the team wants Ronin and the transactions to be signed and take place with the Ronin token. So that's why we were able to liquidity provide and then earn them. And so I'm thinking any major release of anything would coincide with, I guess, the actual network token of Ron being live. So people might not even know about Ron, which a lot of people don't. It's not like it's talked about as much as SLP, and it's not even tradable. It did go up live for futures on FTX just 2 weeks ago. And the price was around $5. So there was a lot of support at $5. And this is just funny money Ron. It wasn't anything that was able to be traded, but everyone's speculating, and the price seemed to just be at $5. So, we could maybe go off of that when it actually goes live. Maybe it'll dip down below that, but we don't know where the floor will be. But sure enough, every other layer 1 token is well into 3 figures or approaching that. And if not, maybe well on their way. Thinking about a Phantom, or a Harmony.
It makes sense to have some big news. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're trying to coincide it with some significant news, because if you don't have that significant news, then, what are you saying to the community at large? Hey, we know SLP has dropped down to 1.5 cents, 1.8 cents, but now we're going to have transaction fees on top of that. So hopefully there's going to be a release of some exciting news to coincide with transaction fees, which is going to then kick off on.
Right, without a doubt, and that's the thing. Like, the team is methodical, and if you've been around, and that's the thing, time really tells and differentiates and it puts apart the different types of projects and depending on the milestones that they had along the way. And I don't have a doubt that they already had a solution, as Delphi Digitals, who helped advise and create the tokenomics of the project, as they did with Astroport and any other project that they're incubating on Terra Luna. Like, they're successful because of the people and the brains behind it. So, in collaboration with Sky Mavis, who created Axie Infinity, and the brains behind the project, I just see how this was already thought about when they first released SLP. And because of the whole population of the Philippines joining in, as well as Venezuela, and just for the whole run up of the and popularity of the game, I would, if I was the team, I would let it run out. I would let it run its course until we are in a situation like this, along with the release of Ron. So I just see how the dominoes are all lined up intentionally. It's not just because they created a shitty tokenomics for SLP and now they're just like, oh, we need community help. They're just wanting to corral and just get the suspense going. And
we're talking about right quick about the tokenomics of SLP. One thing that I thought was interesting, I was on Twitter over the past week. Shout out to Bryce Sent and shout out to Dave versus Axie. Both of them put out a lot of content on Twitter where they were talking about the history of SLP and talking about how it wasn't originally supposed to be, you're supposed to be making all this money off of SLP. That was something that kind of blindsided. Yeah, you have, but they laid it out in a more clear way
for sure,
where I was able to understand it. And maybe, you telling me before, had a bit to do with that. But, so basically and then the scholarship mechanic wasn't something that the team had in the plan either. So basically all of this success in this brand new ecosystem was kind of something that kind of fell in their lap, and they're having to adjust to it on the fly. And they're the first to have ever done it. Nobody's ever done it before. They have all these people now that are in a way depending on Axie, and the community's exploded with a bunch of people who do care about the price of SLP. So I see them struggling, trying to deal with that. And I think it's admirable what they're doing so far. Now that they're starting to actually communicate and talk about things, more clearly and take it more seriously. I think they have a lot of room to grow now.
For sure. Yeah, and when it comes to me saying that, I've been mentioning it was only because I've come from that time of when there was no SLP needed.
Yeah, you were there.
It was such a a desert of a economy for SLP. And then over the times, the community did in fact create scholarships. So the team didn't necessarily care to support it in the way that they're going to onboard it as something part of the actual roadmap that they had in mind. This really came left field. Based off the community. So yeah, of course there's going to be those new bumps in the road where now they have to accommodate, get new devs on a different part of creating maybe something in-house where you could rent the axes. But as everything takes time, it's the SLP price is at a perfect position for the team to now transition to release something like Syncs that we're going to be getting into. And the article,
and it's bled long enough now to where I think they got a lot of the toxic energy out of their community as well, which is also very helpful to a project.
Right.
I don't know if I've ever asked you this before, Ray, but you obviously have been a part of that community for a very long time. And so it's always that instance of, where they say hindsight is 2020. Yeah. So for you, back before Axie really bared fruit, back in the beginning for you, what were some of the things, if you look back now, what were some of the things that attracted you to the project, and what gave you the hope, the idea, the vision that, hey, you know what, this is going to be something? At that time, what was it that you kind of felt steered you in that direction?
So, we're talking about October of 2020, okay. And that's when there was only like 25,000 daily active users. Mm-hmm. So no scholarships weren't necessarily a thing. They were in existence, but only a handful of people were doing it because they either were in before me having just the largest sum of axes, and were already breeding before there was breeding fees, because you can just breed as many times depending on the 7 that's allowed for any particular axie. So what did it for me was, I could honestly say, the community. Like when I got in there, it's just another visual. There wasn't much to play, but again, just what we have now, the arena mode. And, with the nerfs and buffs that came along, it's basically the same thing. But what really caught my attention was just the dedication to everyone in the community at the time. And then also the team and how they had their information laid out for everyone with the tokenomics and the white paper. Like, it really sold me on that. And then my imagination did the rest, like we did with Gala Games. And, you can't win them all. And every company has their own way of going about developing community and tokenomics. But, by far in the space back then, there was really no competition. You had Chain Guardians, not Chain Guardians. I forget the other card game, Coddle God, or there's all these different names, but
no, I remember Axie coming out way back when, and I don't think there was any competition back then, and I didn't get it then, so I didn't look into it at all. But they've been around for a while, yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what did it for me, and then ever since then, that's the major marker for me looking at new projects, because there's been hundreds of projects, whether they're NFT gamings or PFP projects, and they don't really compare. You could always speculate and make money in the short term with all these things, as we've had done since we got in. But when it comes to the longevity of a game being successful, I just have that confidence in the team, as they were vocal and at the time not so much in the interim of the crazy hype with the Filipino and scholarship situation. But to my point that's coming up, the team did this before, where they'll lay low as they're working, and only you'll see Jiho start tweeting and doing more things on Twitter in anticipation of what's coming next. And they always put that sprinkle on where you have to speculate, and it builds that anticipation. So that's something that the team does, that they have been doing. And
I think all projects are beginning to learn from each other in that regard, that how important communication and announcements, all of these things are to keep your community, in check. You got to keep them informed. And I think that all projects right now are learning from the mistakes and the wins and challenges of other projects.
Yeah. The days of a developer going in and showing this great video once a year until the game launches, I think is far over.
Well, the difference is that back in the day, they had their private investors who they would have to give more information to, and now for the first time, those private investors, in a lot of time, in a larger amount, in some cases the entire amount, is the actual community that's going to play the game. And so
Right.
now they're having to give, more game updates to the gamers because we're the ones that are actually investing, which I think is actually good. It's just something they have to learn.
Right. And that's again, it takes time. So unless we have it, then we're not going to reap the benefits of what these projects are building out in the long run. So Raw Mega, just real quick, the
Great
after the
question, Rob
success.
Mega.
Yeah, great question, man. After the success of scholarships created by the community, they did talk about having something because there was a third party group called Axie Tree, I think it was called at the time, and they were too ahead of their time when it came to offering a service that you're mentioning, where people can rent out at a fee and then earn the difference for whoever's renting their Axies if you had an excess of Axies. And they had a Discord. It was very popular at the time, but they were just too ahead of their time, and it kind of fell through the cracks. And sure enough, Axie Infinity did talk over the course of the last year that they would offer something of the sort. So, but that's not at the forefront of what they're doing as far as their roadmap, because that was never a thing. Like Bond said, overhearing Bryson and Dave, two great community members who create content, talking about the scholarships. So when it comes to these photos here I'm showing, and G-Host tweeting, yeah, he recently tweeted this, but these photos were back in 2017, but when the project first came out, before there was even any visual battle arena. It was all behind the scenes. And
yeah, they always did know that they were going to have an Axie sync at some point. They had to have a way
right,
to reduce
right.
the Axie supply. Right.
Right. So if we really think bigger picture here, it's just like, what are those things, right? What's going to be happening to either increase the supply, decrease the supply of SLP, or increase the demand? So in that article that I shared earlier, you have Axie releasing, burning, consumption. And if you go through the article, there's 2 points for increasing the demand, and then the second one was just so small tests will come out. They said, the team from the article, for the increase of demand when it comes to releasing, burning, and consumption of the Axies. So Axie is going to be able to do a lot of things, and there's a lot of people buying up these Axies at floor prices never seen as low as since the beginning of last year. And then other than that, the second point for the increased demand would be the community SLP buyback. So shout out to Jake with on-chain gaming. He made a video and he compared this particular increased demand solution as the Federal Reserve does in the United States, where you have someone pulling the levers of buying back the debt or buying back SLP with treasury funds, so it could keep the price of SLP, or Fed in this case the dollar, from just continuing to go down faster than it will if this continues to go on the way it is with SLP.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm one of the people that is starting to see the reason to buy back in. I bought 2 new teams yesterday for 2 of my scholar prospects that actually seem very excited to continue playing or start playing the game, even at this point with the current price of SLP. So I think they're so cheap right now. I mean, one of the ones I had to buy was for $50. I think the most expensive one I had to buy was for like 120 or something like that. So they're at a pretty low price right now.
If this is indeed the bottom of the market, then of course that would be an outstanding time to gather your teams. I want to pull that back up for Rob Mega real quick here, because I'm not even sure I understood the answer on this one. So do we think that the support for scholarship programs, and ultimately, the fact that people have based their whole life and welfare on SLP, is Axie moving away from this model? Or are they intently looking to support it in the future?
I think more so support it. But with all these new syncs and tokens that might come out, like wood and stone, the attention is not just, or should be, on SLP. So there will be changes. It's inevitable. Some people will get hurt more than others as far as how much they're going to be able to earn. If depending on how Origin comes out with the onset of ears and eyes having card parts, you might have to get new Axies, or the ones that are competitive. Like, we just don't know enough as far as the new way the game is going to be played with the new cards, and then with the new resources that are going to come out with land, whether it's a demo, an alpha, whatever you want to call it. There's going to be something that we're going to be able to do outside of Arena. So that's just too much to even tell you anything in confidence right now. But it's going to be. It was something that the team did allude to of providing for Axie Infinity players. So how that looks, we don't know. There was never details or papers that were written on it. It was just mentioned that they would consider and and are gonna have something. So that's but when it comes to keeping people surviving off of SLP, um, depending on how these syncs and the burning and whatever else they're going to introduce in this new year, the price should either stabilize or go back up for SLP. So I think the livelihood of people will fare as time goes on, and or just be consistent the way it is. Just in real life, if you want more, you got to work more. It's not like we're just we're subsidizing everyone's cost of living here. But yeah, that's just my take on it, and from everything that I know.
And I don't think
About
they're
that.
too far off the mark, right? I mean, yeah, what was the high? 20 cents or 30 cents or something like that.
30.
But
Yeah.
but it's like realistically, they're at a penny now. I've been hearing people talk about 6 to 8 cents being a reasonable price, and if you do the math on it, if you're living in certain countries, it's not a bad stream of income at all at 6
Yeah.
to 8 cents. So they don't have to move that far to get into a position where the economy is going to be a lot more healthy.
Right. So and then again, just like Bryson and Dave said during that what you were overhearing, the project was never to help everyone in the world not go to work and just work in the metaverse, right? Maybe unbank the unbanked on some level, or get people to play the game, because they're building a game that's fun, that is built on the blockchain, that has NFTs and all that jazz. So it wasn't like they had it in their roadmap to create scholarships, like we know, to save people from poverty, right? But as time went on, it just indirectly happened to be the case that this is what happened. So in the Discord, G host is saying we have some experimental syncs coming. He's more active as he was before other updates that were pretty monumental for Axie Infinity, and it's just there's a lot of support still, although there's people who aren't that happy about SLP price. But if what do you guys have to say about SLP? Anything?
No, but
Okay.
I'm curious about how, like, when other companies have tried to do straight up knockoffs, including Binance with Star Sharks.
Right.
I'm just curious why things like that didn't take off when an exchange themselves said, "Hey, let's try and leverage what Axie's doing and just create our own." And I don't really
Right.
picked up any leverage or steam.
Huh.
What do you think it is about? I mean, Axie now. Do you think that if, for example, Illuvium is one that's on the horizon, where they're not doing this exact model, they're trying to feel more into the world of Pokemon and try and do a bit of 3D, similar to the 3D video model that you showed, where Axie seems to be going with what they're going to be doing with land. But what will Axie maintain as a draw? We know it will hold on to much of its community, especially the diehard community that's been there a while. But what will be the draw for new people to come into the Axie world as other opportunities come available and other projects and other games for earning start to take hold?
It'll be a combination, honestly, and depending on people's interest. But as far as the macro draw, that would be, I'm thinking there's already that macro draw, but the anticipation of what's coming and how much farther runway that that Sky Mavis has with Axie Infinity, and then also just in general with having that much money, they might onboard another game, right? That could be something different than what you can enjoy or not enjoy with Axie Infinity. A different genre, a different, a major announcements. We see Gala Games came out of nowhere at Galaverse and brought up every other person who's famous and made connections. Yeah, Walking Dead. It's just like whoever is first to market with the hype gets the attention. But as time goes on, if the confidence isn't there because the SLP price is not going up, if it's that one-dimensional way of thinking, then of course you're going to have a lot of people falling off the sides, and the major draw would be that Ron being active, right? The all the syncs and the land play that's going to come out, where you're going to be able to essentially have two separate games within Axie Infinity that I feel are going to be the case, with the overlap of the cards and the effects of those cards being played out in the land, but then in the arena, and yeah. But as far as like they have the money, they have the people who are driven to make the project better, more fun. If we gave them at least 10 years, which is the talk around town of how far they can push this out, 10 years is a long time. So within those 10 years, are they going to release land gameplay at the half mark? I don't think so. They are alluding to having land gameplay, and then within this year, again, no fixed dates on any one thing in particular. But because of the activity on part of the team, I just feel like there's going to be something coming very soon that people aren't keeping their eye on. Because again, a lot of people aren't on the ground level of the community and what's going on with the teams, and following up with a lot of things. So
I think you're right on a major update coming soon. I mean, I've been watching them on their Twitter feeds and whatnot, and you saw them try to, I think you and me, Jesse, talked about this on previous podcasts. You saw them trying to kind of ignore the problem and ignore the gorilla in the room for the last month or two, while things were getting worse. And now you're starting to see a media push, what's Bryson and Dave versus Axie and all these guys coming out with this is all media coming out. G Hose is tweeting more. He's talking about SLP for the first time now in I don't know how long. So I think they're actually ready to probably release something here in the near future.
yeah,
They're a lot more confident for sure.
Yeah, and think about it. We're a group of people creating and building. Maybe not to the extent with the same amount of funds, or however you want to describe it. But if we're well on our way of releasing something ourselves, would we constantly talk about it and not work on it? Depending on the team and the resources at hand, like we would make sure that we have the support and garner that enthusiasm and morale within the community. But on some level, it's just like what you're doing, and when it comes out, it's going to be a pretty good success, depending on like how much is marketed and what time and effort was put in, and if it's even functional at that point after release. So it's not that easy, man. I'm not a dev on Star Atlas, but I could only imagine like the pressure, and then with everything that comes into play when building a project.
They're definitely a lot more functional than a lot of other projects out there, for sure.
For sure. But just to start closing in on Axie, these are just just wanted to mention how there's only 500 Frosty body part Axies, and this was back in 2018 and 2018, 2019, that you had a 75% success rate. Both parents must have the part in the recipe in the dominant genes, and recessives do not matter for this event. So if you paired up a tiny dino tail with another from a different, you would get the animated light tail of the same card. So depending on how often you were breeding, it was a pretty cool idea that they had, which they didn't really follow through and keep up for other holidays, and they discontinued these types of breeding events. It might come back. I would say it could help in some way of to get people to breed and burn more SLP. But again, none of these are going to be a quick fix for the amount of minting of SLP and the amount of burning versus minting.
What kind of variable does that throw in? Like, so say in 2019, 2020, if they had these holiday events, and in this case, they made a frozen bucket. So you're playing teams in Axie, and all of a sudden you come up with even teams, even Steven across the board, except for this one's got a frozen bucket. Like what is that? What role does that play in? Is it just aesthetic? Is there anything,
right. So the same thing with the moves this is just aesthetics for now. The team did allude to Mystic Axies having some type of extra, utility that could maybe produce AXS passively while you just own one and have it doing things on your land plot or just in general in the land of Lunacia. But for now, it's been a long time just with land and only having a demo, just one since the game came out. There's a lack of people being able to do things with their NFTs. So Axie is not too different with their scarcity rarity type of NFTs compared to other projects that we talk about. But I just know for a fact that there's gonna, call me crazy, but there's gonna be some added utility that's gonna come in a package deal with a new release. And I feel like they do that, so now it gives that amount of it gives people that amount of time for the next major update to come, where people could have enough to do.
And to be fair, I don't really think you always have to have utility. Like if you have, like in this
Right.
situation here, you have a game that people are playing. If you give somebody a cool rare skin in a game that millions of people are playing anyway, then they have swag, they have clout in that game, and that's something we've seen be very valuable in the past without it having to have any extra utility. The issue that I run into is when you see a lot of these projects who are releasing a lot of NFTs saying that they're going to be rare without there actually being a mass following and gameplay and utility in the game by itself to kind of push that rarity to actually mean something to people, and that's something you need.
Yeah, and if these projects are talking about having this utility early on and then it never happens, it just doesn't work well for the project and their image at all. So it's something that's going to be a thing. It's just, again, the timing, and if they release that time, it just doesn't happen on our time. When we want it to happen, it doesn't necessarily happen. We get leaks here and there, but nothing as far as these axes and the added utility that we know of yet. So maybe on an Arctic plot, the theory crafting is always there. There's always a route we could take where you get an extra defense buff for it being a body frosty part on an Arctic land, and then a nerf if it's on a savanna land because of the heat. You're like, is that going to be a thing? Weather and the sun and nighttime, daytime cycles. We don't know exactly. But I happen to just pick up one of these, and like you were saying, Bonafide, the floor prices for these rarity plays, depending on the project, they hold their price. So as SLP might be going down, and then you have the Bitcoin and all these factors taking place while the markets are down, and certain NFT projects are just holding their value, not fluctuating that much in Ethereum. So I went ahead and purchased this back on the 28th of December, and I forgot to mention it in the last Axie update. But I didn't have one, and I just wanted one. So there's that reason I bought it, because there's only a finite amount. So that scarcity play is there, and then I loved how it looked. And it's just I have Arctic plots myself, so I look forward to playing. So I just wanted to share that. It's pretty cool. And here we go. So looking at some 3D land items right now. This was just posted up while we were live earlier. So do you want to see them? So these little things that the team is coming out with now is either something they planned or just from what the community is voicing, right? Of seeing more. Like, even if it's just 3D land items right now, that doesn't mean that's the only thing they're going to show, and that's going to be the major update. I
do think it's funny though that like 10% of the people took the sign and said, I'm good, man. I don't need to see it.
Yeah, or fuck that. How about you fix SLP price? Right?
That's what that no vote actually says.
I don't want to see shit, but SLP go up.
That's what they're saying. You already know
that's
that.
Hilarious. That is hilarious. But that's pretty much it for the Axie, man. You should, I could throw up a whole bunch of slides here and in support of the team and what they're doing. I'm a critic myself when it comes to just any money I'm invested in. I want to see what's going on, and I could talk just as bad about these guys as good. And for what it's worth, there's just been more good that happened than there was bad to talk about. Just the bad outside of SLP.
I think that's a good point to close out, because we're at 2 hours and 30 minutes here. Thanks for everybody for rocking with us. I think it's interesting that on our podcast, where a lot of times we feel like we need to beat certain projects up, we had all positive news this week. Yet and still, the price of Bitcoin has been tumble, and a lot of regular crypto currencies are tumbling while these projects are coming out with a lot of positive news. So it shows a little bit of separation, if not in value, at least in sentiment. Right. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining us, and as usual, we will see you here same time, same channel next week. And feel free to comment on the video. We'll engage with you here in our Discord and of course on our Twitter pages. As usual, joinrome.io. That'll get you in contact with us the easiest way. Thank you everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Are you ready for the next evolution in gaming? Blockchain games are here. Why just play when you can play to earn? Enter the Star Atlas Metaverse with Rome. Star Atlas is a grand strategy game of space exploration, territorial conquest, political domination, and so much more. Rome is a premier guild of the Oni faction within Star Atlas. Rome is here to play and to earn. Want to take part in the action? Rome is accepting new citizens. Join the Rome Guild on Discord to learn more at gorome.io.